Chilly start to this Tuesday morning. Thank you for spending it with us. We are the wake-up call here on 93.5, 107.5 The Fan, and a horribly performed transition off of that. The thing that wasn't chilly last night was Tyrese Haliburton, right? He was hot.
Yes, he was, Kevin Bowen.
What a horrible radio transition to begin today's show.
I was wondering where you were going to go there. Yes, and they needed every bit of him being hot last night, did they not?
Back to normal, Mr. Haliburton. We haven't seen that very often this season. Looked like a $200 million guy. And to talk more about that, Rick Carlisle will join us here at 8 o'clock. Safe travel to everyone out there. Obviously, this is one of the busier weeks of the year in regards to that. And it looks like this temperature is what we're going to have a whole lot. And it is going to be a cold Saturday night in Bloomington for the bucket game.
Yeah, fellas, good morning to you. If you're traveling, what app do you guys use to make sure there's no police up ahead? Is it Waze? Do you know? Like I-65 all the way basically past Nashville, I feel like from up to Indy to Nashville, I could navigate knowing where every state trooper's going to be.
I use
do
Waze.
You guys have that?
I use Waze for that, and then just kind of like if you start seeing delays. But then it's a user app, so if you see delays, people are rerouting you like, go this way instead. And that's just as bad. So I kind of split between Waze and
So is Waze pretty
Google
accurate
Maps.
with the old police?
It's supposed to be. I don't know. I don't use it very much. You know, I drive the speed limit, guys. I don't ever break the law
Not a mile over.
in any sort of way. By the way, Mark, you went and you hung
I'm
Christmas
alive.
lights yesterday.
I did it.
And you sound terrible. I sound terrible as well.
I don't think you sound that bad.
I mean, Bone, you're gonna have to carry us today, all the way to 9:57.
Mark sounds bad, but you don't sound too bad.
Well, thank you. I appreciate that.
Excuse me.
There's a lot of medicine to get to
Mark's
this
the
point.
Giants, you're the Colts.
Thank you.
Not only did I hang Christmas lights, I cleaned the gutters too.
Wow.
So I did
What
double
a Monday.
duty. And then I coughed
Husband of
once,
the year right there on a
and my
Monday.
voice kind of went. I was like,
Oh, my
okay,
goodness.
cool. We're doing that right before Thanksgiving.
Mark loses his voice quite a bit. I want to say this
I
is
don't
the
know what's
fifth or
going
sixth
on.
time you've done that this year. It's like you're a vocalist.
Maybe.
Like you're Adele.
I need entertainment spray, Kevin. Hook me up.
You should have texted me last night. I would have brought that in. I assume you guys aren't coming over tonight. It's going to be a late one.
Oh, I saw it 10:30. If you're lucky, on TBS, Notre Dame and Rutgers. Feel the power of college basketball.
You want to laugh? They're 10:30 tonight. Guess what time they are tomorrow?
I think you said last week. I mean, it's midnight, isn't it?
They are 12:30 a.m. tomorrow against Houston. Can you imagine
These are
staying
good
up
games.
staying up till 12:30 in the morning to watch your team try and play offense against Kelvin Sampson?
Like people say, well, it's West Coast, but it's Vegas. Put it at 2 o'clock in the afternoon. Vegas has no time. But us on the East Coast and even Central Time, we have lives. We're going to stay up to 3 a.m. the night before Thanksgiving. Kids are going to be up at 6:30. You're going to be on 3.5, 4 hours of sleep going into a full day of Thanksgiving festivities. Come on, you can't do that.
We're too old. We can't do Blackout Wednesday anymore.
You can't do Blackout Wednesday.
Top 8 sporting event of the year began yesterday. That would be the Maui Invite. It is always an absolute classic, and I swear they tipped off at 9 a.m. local time. Why can't we do that in Vegas?
I mean,
for the
that's what
Irish?
I'm saying. People are up. They're up all day. They're up all
Dan
night.
Hurley got teed up before it was time to hit your noon lunch spot.
He did. I did get to watch McNeely a little bit. He had the foul late in the game that Hurley deserved about 14 technicals. That dude is a crazy man. I contend, and I saw this going around Twitter, and I'm mad that I didn't like talk about this more. There's no doubt about it. Dan Hurley is the next Bobby Knight. There's no doubt, because you got to win. You got to be a really good coach or a great coach, but you also have to be pretty crazy. And if you're telling me someone could throw a chair across the gymnasium and replicate Bobby Knight, who would it be? Be Danny Hurley. It's exactly who it would be.
His post-game quote was, I was performing like Oppenheimer, I believe, or something to that effect on the sideline with his antics on that one.
Goodness.
Again, Rick Carlisle coming up 8 o'clock. We're talking about a back-to-back winning stretch for the Pacers for just the second time this season. Again, Tyrese Haliburton was outstanding last night. That was vintage Haliburton. That was all-star Haliburton. That was $200 million Haliburton. That was all-NBA. All of those boxes were checked. The Pacers will continue their homestand tomorrow night against another banged-up bad basketball team in the Portland Trail Blazers. Speaking of banged up, we'll get to the Colts. They've got a couple of injuries to note here as they play their 13th straight game of the season, as will New England. New England's on the same sort of schedule here with that late bye week coming up So we'll hit on that as well. And tonight, Andy, we will get college football playoff rankings 8 o'clock tonight on that. And Indiana fell to 10 in the polls. And how far they will fall tonight will certainly be the discussion point.
Yeah, what do you think? I think they'll be 10. If I had to guess right now, I would say Indiana would be 10.
Yeah, I mean, they have mirrored the AP poll a whole lot. I guess some questions I would have was, do you have two ACC teams above Indiana?
Yep, it's a big question.
I mean, SMU and Miami would be the question on that end.
Where's Boise State? That's another one for me.
Yeah, Boise is certainly right there as well. And then from an SEC front, what does that look like? How many 2-loss SEC teams will be above IU? Do we have any close 3-loss SEC teams? And Clemson is probably the team that's lurking. They are a 2-loss team. They're not the 2-loss ACC team that I think would be above Indiana. I think it would be SMU and Miami.
Agreed.
And that's already official, right? That's our conference championship game because Clemson plays South Carolina coming up.
Correct, yep.
Here in a non-conference game. So those would be the questions. And then selfishly for my Irish, if I could throw one in there.
Yeah, go ahead.
Do they jump Penn State?
Well, I think they should. Will they? That's a whole different question, but I think they should. It won't matter, though, will it?
Well, yeah, it'll
how much will it matter, I guess?
Bracket-wise, it would matter, certainly in what your path would look like. Because you want to get to that, 5 or 6 line, theoretically, to avoid, big, what would that be, Oregon, I guess, moving on, and probably the SEC champ moving on. You want to play ACC or Big 12 in round 2. You don't want to play Big 10 or SEC.
That's right.
round 2.
I'm still waiting on the committee to do something crazy that we can talk about something other than Indiana. Like, it's no offense to Indiana, and it was great. We played the sound last week. Everything was about Indiana. Joey Galloway giving his hot take that they need to sit Curtis Rourke. And listen, we had some fun with that, but I'm wondering if the committee does something where there is a surprise in the room, where we all gasp on a Tuesday night as we settle in for Notre Dame-Rutgers basketball, right? Like, I'm looking for a gasp tonight other than Indiana, right? I'm looking for someone to be somewhere where someone's going, huh? Why is that the case? So we'll see what happens there. And then, yesterday, you mentioned the Colts. We talked about this just a little bit. Josh Downs, another injury. It just, and this one's a big one. And so I don't know if it's more A.D. Mitchell, who at times has been a vanishing act in this offense. But, I think even off air, we talked a little bit about it. He injured his shoulder. It looked bad. Steichen's out there. You have players around Downs are taking a knee. Anthony Richardson's out there. Everyone looks really worried. And then he comes back into the game, and then it was a late play, obviously, in the fourth quarter down the left sideline. Richardson aired it out to him, and he dove, and he kind of landed on that shoulder again. And on the TV broadcast, they talked about it, KB. He goes back out of the game, I guess him going in the game kind of made me think, okay, the Colts avoided worst-case scenario here. And maybe they did, given that, he might not have to be on IR, but you talk about week to week, you are in a situation, if you're the Colts, where you have to basically go 4-1, right? You basically have to go at least 4-1 down the stretch to have a chance to make the postseason. And now you're going to miss. When you hear week to week, what do you think? I think of 2 weeks. That's what I think.
Yeah, so just if it is that, it would just be one game. That's the fortunate news because you do have your bye week upcoming. I thought it was stupid to put Downs back in the game. That's where I'm at. I thought
I would love to know what happened there.
I said to Mike Chappell, I'm like, there's no way you put him back out there. You're down 3 scores. Why would you put, such a, important player when he was writhing in pain? It was clear there was some sort of issue on that end. So yeah, we'll see if Josh Downs, can have a miracle recovery and play on Sunday. If not, again, their bye week's upcoming. The other offensive injury news, it could lead to an Indiana native in the lineup on Sunday. Rookie Tanner Bortolini, the center out of Wisconsin, concussion-like symptoms after the game, so he is in protocol. Again, Ryan Kelly has been on injured reserve, and he cannot return this week. That is a 4-game absence minimum, so he is also still out, so that would mean Ball State's Danny Pinter, probably one of the forgotten men really on the 53-man roster.
Sure.
He has not played an offensive snap in the NFL in 2 years, hasn't started a game in over 2 years. It looks like it would be him to get the call in the starting lineup if Bortolini cannot get through concussion protocol.
Yeah, whenever you talk about concussion protocol, you never think they're playing the week of.
No. Very rare.
I never.
Very
it is
rare.
very rare. It has happened. I want to be clear. It's happened. Tyrone Tracy, the Purdue kid, it happened with him. He was in the protocol, and he got out of the protocol to play on a Sunday, but I can't think of another one. I would love to know how many guys in the NFL have done that. So we'll keep you abreast of the situation there. What did you make of the Pacers last night? I got to be honest, it was a 109-108 game, and Haliburton missed that shot with about a minute. What was it? About a minute and a half to go, and I thought, are they going to lose again? That's what I thought, but they got the win. Haliburton was great. They needed him to be great. After the game, he talked about the joy of basketball, and they're just going to need him these next few games at home to basically score 30 points to carry them. Siakam, obviously, last night. Miles Turner had 17. Boy, they needed one. And what was an odd lineup. The Pelicans are a random team with everybody injured. They're a random-ass team.
Shout out to Quinton Jackson. Some big moments from him as well. I mean, a huge corner three there late in that one. I don't know what was more important last night, the fact the Pacers won or Haliburton looked like that.
I know. It's a great question.
Like, you need both right now. And if you want to, really examine these last two wins, Haliburton's been very good in both of them. Now, is this him back at home? I hate to get into the road home split debate again, but again, Haliburton was just outstanding. And obviously, when you hit 9 3-pointers, you're going to be very, very good. But 13 assists and 2 turnovers? I mean, that is, again, that was a video game night that he made almost look routine for long stretches last season. He hit that deep one early, and you felt like, okay, here you go. And you know what? Second night of a back-to-back. If he's dealing with an injury, you would think he'd be limited.
That's the first time they've done that, right? Won the second game of a back-to-back this season.
I mean, you think specifically individually, Haliburton would look limited if he's dealing with something there. Not at all. I thought he had some big drives, big takes late, and then the alley-oop to Mathurin was kind of the cherry on top. So outstanding from Tyrese Haliburton. Again, 34 points, 13 assists, just 2 turnovers. The Pacers get it done. Was not the prettiest-looking thing. They got off to a great start. It got very clunky there. But at this point, you just need wins. And again, this week provides an opportunity to get wins. So far, 2 for 2. They need 4-0 or they need 3-1.
Rick Carlisle's coming up at 8 o'clock. I think he'll probably not like this, but, I'm just interested. It feels like the Pacers are in survival mode. So how do we analyze these games when, number one, they have so many injuries? Number two, guys are playing minutes that they probably early on in the season maybe shouldn't play. And then number three, you're in survival mode, right? It's like this weekend with the Colts and Patriots the same way. If they win 23-20, it's probably going to be an ugly game against a really bad New England team, but you got the win, and you're in survival mode to make the postseason. KB, that's how I feel with the Pacers. It's tough to come in here and analyze, especially some of the negative stuff that you saw. Obviously, the Pelicans are an injured team and not a very good team. We talked about that yesterday, but how do we do that when they are a team that is just flat out in survival mode? They just got to win games. It doesn't matter if they're high-scoring games, low-scoring games, if the refs hand them a win. Like, to me, it just doesn't matter. They just got to win basketball games at this point.
Yeah, I mean, there's an element, I think, of surviving, any season. I mean, hell, you could point to the Chiefs right now and say they're in survival mode to a degree in some of these games. So, obviously, last night, you look individually and look at Haliburton. And right now, you need him to get going. And we'll see. Are you any closer on Nembhard and Nesmith? That would obviously be welcome there. Certainly Nembhard appears to be a little closer than Aaron Nesmith. For those that missed it last night, older brother better than younger brother. John Harbaugh. How about Harbaugh going for it 4th and 1 on his own, 18-yard line in the first half?
It's just unbelievable.
That would be John Harbaugh, by the way.
I was about to say, you need to tell the people which Harbaugh it was.
On that. So that was your Monday night victory, and a couple local stories from the NBA. OG Anunoby drops 40 last night.
I saw that.
Jaden Ivey with the game winner. Little floater in the lane.
I didn't see that. Jaden Ivey had the game winner? Okay.
He's had a very nice start to the season.
Okay. Yeah, I saw OG drop 40 on the road in Denver. That's pretty good. When's the last time OG Anunoby had 40 points? That's just not his game.
I was going to say, I assume it's career high.
Yeah, I would assume it is as well. All right, so tons, obviously, today, some Colts conversation. Nate Atkins wrote something in the Star I wanted to hit on. Plus, obviously, Anthony Richardson discussion as well. We saw finally the contract details, KB, for Kirk Cignetti. Yesterday, some buyout numbers.
And Ryan Walters is coming back.
All signs point to Ryan Walters coming back, which, doesn't surprise me. Although, he only has one move, and that's fire all of his coordinators. What good coordinator is going to go there for 1 year, coming off a 1-10, soon to be 1-11 season? I'm not quite sure on that. So we'll dive into all of that. Rick Carlisle going to join us coming up at 8:00. On the other side, Pacers win. Plus, what did Shane Steichen say about this week? And looking back, obviously, at the game last weekend against Detroit. We'll talk about it all. Appreciate you waking up with us. It's a Thanksgiving week Tuesday right here, 93.5, 107.5 The Fan.
Rick Carlisle, he's going to join us coming up every Tuesday. You hear him back in that 8 o'clock time slot, and we will get to his Pacers certainly here on the morning checkdown. A big night from their star in Tyrese Haliburton.
Yeah, let's talk about that. Back-to-back wins, and boy, the Pacers needed one. 8-10 on the season, 6-2 though at home. And you mentioned Tyrese Haliburton, 34 points, 13 assists, just had the 2 turnovers, which is so key. Hit 9 3-pointers, 9 of 18 last night, all the big shots. So Haliburton was fantastic. 17-9 from Miles Turner. And finally, KB, Pascal Siakam did not go over 20 points, but did have 14, the 7 rebounds and 7 assists. Again, 114, 110. That's your final. So what's up next for the Pacers? Well, obviously, we'll talk with Rick Carlisle at 8 o'clock. But tomorrow night, Portland in town coming up, 7 o'clock, 6:30 pregame right here on The Fan.
And shout out to Quinton Jackson. I thought he made some big plays late on top of, obviously, Haliburton's great night. Some hustle plays from Benedict Mathurin. We're not used to saying that about him. So much needed. Just the second time all season the Pacers have won back-to-back games. All right, Monday Night Football last night. It was older brother getting the best of little brother. That would be John Harbaugh, 30-23. Ravens over the Chargers. Lamar Jackson with a trio of touchdowns. Derrick Henry, 140 on the ground. The Ravens went for a 4th and 1 from their own 16 late in the first half. They were down, was it 10-0? I think they were down 10-0.
Yeah, it was 10-0.
Early
quarter.
in that game, and that certainly set the tone for the rest of the afternoon, or rest of the evening, I should say. So, Ravens and Chargers right now. Both these teams look like playoff teams, but John getting the best of little brother Jim last night.
Well, that throw Lamar had to Rashad Bateman was insane.
Yeah, that was a hell of a catch, too, and with pass interference. And, yeah, that was a huge turning point there late in the first half. That was right after the 4th and 1, if I'm not mistaken.
Is Deontay Johnson ever going to have a catch for the Ravens?
No.
I mean that. I mean that with a smile, just because he hasn't done anything. He's got 1 catch for 6 yards in 4 games.
He's getting dropped from my fantasy team as of today.
4 games. Mark, you also sound like you just smoked a pack of cigarettes during the break, which a lot of producers and board ops do in sports talk radio.
Can we bring that back?
Just bring it back. Quickly, Colts yesterday, Shane Steichen meeting with the media. Let me give you 2 different things to chew on here. Steichen talking about Jonathan Taylor, getting him going last 2 games with Anthony Richardson. Oddly enough, just 2.6 yards per carry. Here's Steichen.
It starts with myself. I think schematically we got to look at some things on what we're doing to get that thing going, because he is a very talented player that can, create the home runs for us. So we'll look at that this week big time.
Yeah, I mean, they got to get him going. This was supposed to be the year of Jonathan Taylor. It's been okay, but it hasn't been great. As for the A word, accountability, Steichen was asked about that as well yesterday.
Those conversations take place, obviously, in the meeting rooms. I think accountability has got to be at an all-time high in this profession with everything we do. And so we got to hold ourselves accountable. We got to hold players accountable so we can be at our very best.
Yeah, so I don't know if that means anything to fans hearing that from Shane Steichen. Of course, Colts in New England coming up on Sunday.
Yeah, I'll be curious to make a change at right guard, starting lineup-wise. And, again, we'll get into those injuries a little bit more. The Colts do have several of them here entering Week 13. Jonathan Taylor, one thing to note, last 2 games, 75% of his carries for 3 yards or less.
That's unbelievable.
No recipe for success on that end. Love the Maui Classic yesterday. Outstanding games, one of my favorite sporting events of the year. Huge late comebacks from North Carolina and Auburn last night, and then UConn went down to Memphis there in the opener. So we'll get into that. All 3 of our local teams, the big local teams here, Indiana, Purdue, and Butler, will have their respective tournaments. San Diego for Purdue, Phoenix for Butler, the Bahamas for Indiana. That will start up tomorrow. It'll be Indiana and Louisville at noon tomorrow.
IU-Indy got the win last night. Yeah, there's a little clap in the background.
Yeah.
I like that.
Greyhound.
There we go.
Alabama A&M for Paul Casaro's bunch. That was much needed.
It was. By the way, going back to that UConn game, Tyrese Hunter had 26 points for Memphis. I totally forgot. Did you know he was on Memphis's team?
Yeah.
I had no idea until yesterday.
I feel like he was Iowa State maybe at one point. Maybe Texas at one point.
Yeah, Iowa State, then Texas for a couple years.
Big shots.
Oh, he had 26 points last night. Liam McNeely, he had a foul late in the game, and that's what got...
He's good at basketball,
Yeah,
though.
he's not too bad. That's what got your boy Danny Hurley to flip out and get the technical. And then after the game, he whined. He said something to the effect of, I thought back-to-back national champions would mean we would get better calls. I thought fair enough.
Outstanding.
Yeah, fair enough. Let's see. Coming up tonight, college basketball. Obviously, you mentioned on Wednesday it's going to be Indiana. Creighton's in action. UConn, Colorado. Some top 25 teams. Houston, Alabama tonight. Iowa State, Dayton should be a good one. Auburn, North Carolina is at 11 p.m. You won't see that one. Kansas, Duke coming up at 9 o'clock. So a bunch of good late college basketball games coming up tonight. Rick Carlisle joins us in a half an hour. The Colts, who are they feuding with? We'll dive into that. Plus, a big win last night for Tyrese Haliburton and the Pacers. Appreciate you waking up with us on this Tuesday on The Fan.
Tyrese Haliburton looking like his old self. We'll talk about that with Rick Carlisle coming up. Pacers have won 2 in a row. They'll go for their first 3-game win streak of the year. Coming up tomorrow night, a very banged-up Portland Trailblazers team inside of Gainbridge Fieldhouse.
All right, so before we get to this beef between the Colts, Zaire Franklin, maybe it's squashed with Pat McAfee. So I got one Pacer item for you. You ready for this? I'm watching last night's game, and obviously you see Doug Bowles was in attendance. Did you happen to see that?
Adam Silver in the building.
Adam Silver was in the building. Probably could have, led with him. And Caitlin Clark was there, sitting next to Tyrese Haliburton's girlfriend, and Connor McCaffrey was there. Obviously, are they engaged? He's not engaged to Caitlin Clark. They're an item though. Okay,
You're gonna break that news when it comes out. You'll see it on Twitter. I'm sure.
I'm sure I will. If it's fake news or not, I'm sure I'll put it on the air. But so multiple times they went to Caitlin Clark and they had the lower third on our guys on FanDuel, okay? So I need Denary, I don't know if he's listening right now, to help me out with this, but Caitlin Clark was in attendance, and they have the lower third, and it just says Caitlin Clark. How about some love from my man Connor McCaffrey? Why can't he get his name up there?
Well, maybe that's a given. Butler assistant, Iowa legend.
Is that it?
Maybe Caitlin Clark needs the nameplate.
She needs to be identified, not Connor McCaffrey. I felt bad for him. I'm like, come on, man. Put my man on the lower third. He's got the McCaffrey name. He's a local guy. He used to work for the team. What are we doing here? Come on.
It's like the Pacers and the Fever throw up those whatever gifs of Caitlin Clark waving to the camera, and then it's the awkward wait, do you include the person next to them, or do you just go with them?
Chris Denary's too busy calling games and sending out blueprints for how to light your house on Christmas.
I was going to say, he's going to need sheet 3 to map out his lights at the Denary household that he sent us yesterday. So.
I always thought of that if you were dating or married or engaged to a famous woman, and you were the husband next to the famous woman, would you like to live that life where you were just the guy next to the famous woman? And I always come back to you, hell yes, that's exactly what I would love to do in my life.
Where they take the pictures like, you sir, get out of there.
You sir, get out of it. You sir, get out of the way.
You mind run to that restaurant downstairs and grab yourself another beer before you come back.
Exactly. Of course, then you have pressure not to drink 20 beers and be sloppy in public for TMZ. But that's an entirely different discussion.
So Pat McAfee, Zaire Franklin. We're at a 7th grade relationship here, sophomore year relationship. What's the back and forth? Are we good? Did Zaire finally take the high road?
I don't know if we're good or not. Now, let me ask you this. You guys got to talk a little bit about this on Friday, right?
Yeah, so it was
you
just
tell me what happened.
Yeah, Friday was just tweets, and I guess we should just start here. And feel free to fill in any gaps that I'm missing here, Andy.
Sure, and I have 3 pieces of sound we can play.
So
as well.
McAfee disagreed or kind of went back and forth on the starting quarterback decision. Is that where kind of the root of this is?
Okay, so I would say, when McAfee...
He thought Richardson should have been benched?
Yeah, well, okay, when AR got benched, McAfee, and this is what I find interesting, McAfee has lived in this arena to where he's buddy with these people, right? I mean, you would agree with that, KB, would you not? That he's...
I don't know how many of the current players in the team.
Well, understandable, but sports figures in general, right? He's had Tyrese Haliburton in. Obviously, locally, he's always on the big board until last week, at these Colts games. And so, even former coaches and analysts that come on the air, he is I view him as more of a friend, a very open kind of show that he can put on. There isn't a lot of crapping on guys that are playing really, really bad, okay? That's not his thing. There are shows that do a lot of that. And so I noticed on Friday, during the entire, let me go back a couple weeks ago with Anthony Richardson, he was very vocal about this team losing games and how guys are being paid and they're not coming through. He was critical of Anthony Richardson taking himself out of the game. And to me, as someone who has been covering the Colts with you guys for the last couple years now, last year and a half, I had not heard him talk about the Colts in that way. It's always been my team, and we got things going, and I love Shane Steichen and everything else. And so I've just never heard him kind of be hard on the team, quite frankly. And so Zaire and EJ, especially Zaire on their podcast, they clapped back at Pat McAfee. And so there's been this back and forth. Let me give you 2 clips here. Let me give you 2 clips from Friday. And then I'll give you the clip on Sunday as well when McAfee went on the NFL Network, I don't know, an hour and a half before the game against the Lions. So here's McAfee on Friday. Go ahead.
And they use my picture, okay, in the thing as if I'm the only human that was talking about all the problems that were happening in your locker room, okay? Your locker room, the one that had people missing treatment and gambling on the team and being late to meetings and saying they don't work hard and quarterbacks tapping out of, and I'm the problem? Okay. I think that's a potential part of the issue with the Colts.
All right, so there's McAfee on Zaire Franklin.
Isaiah Rodgers catching some strays there. I was watching him on Sunday Night Football the other night.
Yes, you were. Here's McAfee again on Friday, basically saying the Colts are a mess right now.
We haven't won the AFC South in 10 years.
Oh,
10 years.
Are you sure?
10 years. Haven't won the AFC South. Now, the way people are getting paid and the way people act in the Indianapolis Colts facility, you would think they're winning Super Bowls. No, they're not. They haven't won the AFC South since 2014.
Damn.
We got people wondering if they're even working hard. That's in their locker room, not mine.
All right, so that was about a 6-minute segment where he really took down the Colts. I just gave you 45 seconds from it. Now, here's McAfee on Sunday.
Did at one point he flash up Zaire Franklin's college resume at Syracuse and the
he did the win
3 and 4 win seasons there?
Yeah, he did. He did do
I
that.
mean,
he went flamethrower on Zaire Franklin on Friday.
Yeah.
He did, and the Colts, quite frankly. I mean, he called guys out and said some pretty crazy things. So that was on Friday. Then on Sunday goes on with Rich Eisen on the NFL Network, which I don't know how he works for ESPN, but goes on the NFL Network. But that's an entirely different story. Here's McAfee. It's about 50 seconds, doubling down on everything that he said. Go ahead.
This Colts team, this current Colts team that wear the jerseys every single week, I do believe I am a part of enemy camp. They hate me. And a lot of it is because they do. They do not like me, these boys. And a lot of it is because of how I spoke about this situation with Anthony Richardson. You know, I'd never seen what I'd seen a few weeks back where he tapped out just because he was tired, and then he actually said that publicly. I thought, wow, what the hell are we doing here? And then that obviously led to a lot of questions about the building where it's taking place. And over the last few years, there's been reports of guys missing treatment, being late to team meetings, not working hard. These are the players saying these types of things. So then you got a quarterback tapping out I'd never seen in my life. So I, just like everybody else, goes on a microphone the next day on my show. Shout out to Rich, much bigger show than mine. And I say, I ain't never seen anything like this team, that I'm a season ticket holder where I've spent hundreds and hundreds of thousands of dollars on season tickets here. So these are all things that I've said. I have a lot of question marks.
All right, so while all that is going on, I think it's Maurice Jones-Drew and others are in the studio, and they're like stunned they're getting this minute from Pat McAfee.
Because he's on the field at Lucas Oil doing this.
Because he's on the field. The guys are warming up behind him.
Zaire Franklin's 30 yards away from him.
He's talking about how much the team doesn't like him. I don't know if this is losing. I don't know if there's something else that's going on. I don't know if Zaire Franklin and them have bunny ears. They need to be worried about other things instead of listening to guys in the media. I don't know if, Pat McAfee's been, the last year and a half I've been here, has been very supportive of the team, even though they have been a very average football team. So what has changed other than a couple players chirping back at him? But, I mean, you got the biggest, one of the biggest media guys here in town who's all into everything. Obviously, former Colts player versus the current guys, and the current guys aren't making the playoffs. What do you think?
Well, I guess we should start here. Zaire Franklin, and again, feel free to add anything onto this. It seemed like he was upset that McAfee went back and forth on the Richardson-Flacco debate, if I'm not mistaken, and, obviously was not happy that he was calling out the locker room specifically. I think that's where Franklin, I know we didn't play any Zaire audio there, but that's where Zaire was very upset on his own podcast last week. So I think that's where you get this back and forth. I thought first off, I thought both parties could have handled it much better than obviously it has played out. We'll play the Zaire clip here upcoming. He took the high road, I would say, to the nth degree yesterday. I thought Zaire Franklin had two very, very, I'm nodding my head religiously at his comments yesterday. One on this, and we'll play this here in just a second, and the other one on the amount of Lions fans in the building. We'll get to that at some point in the show. But I guess I would start here. Zaire, I think, and there are people like this. Mike Woodson, frankly, is like this. If you put on our jersey, you should support us to the nth degree.
It's a great point with Mike Woodson.
There's
it's a great
no
point.
Mike Woodson has the same sort of relationship with Brian Evans. We've heard Brian Evans be critical of the Indiana basketball team, particularly under Mike Woodson with John, with our afternoon show here, and that's pissed Mike Woodson off. And I think Zaire Franklin was frustrated by Pat McAfee not being supportive. So on that end of it, I think people that are in the media or go on those shows, it's your job to be honest more than anything. Just because you were once a player or a coach or whatever for that team doesn't mean that you have to just, throw out rose petals and walk over them constantly. No, I think honest critiques and honest evaluations, it's important. I don't want to listen to somebody that I know is going to be biased or not going to give an honest opinion on it. That sounds awful to me from a listener or a consumer standpoint. So I'll go there. McAfee calling out the locker room, it's this is probably going off a little bit of a different branch of it, Andy, but I just feel like the constant retention and continuity, and like if you look at the captains of the Colts, there's 8 of them. That's a big number. 7 of the 8 have never played for any other team in the NFL. And I just think, thinking that, again, you're holier than thou locker room, and unquestionably, these are the right guys to motivate and lead and win. It's like, well, wait a minute. Where's the winning? And that's kind of what McAfee's getting at. Now, he obviously did it in a much more of an aggressive manner than I just said it.
Sure.
But I do think there's some validity to it.
I think there is a ton of validity to it.
Outside of DeForest Buckner, again, who of your leaders have won at a substantial level in the NFL and can impart that into your locker room? Obviously, Buckner's been here now for 5 years.
And who's playing at a super high level all the time, consistently. Not a lot of them.
That's why I do think McAfee has some truth to it of no, we have to bring it back. We have to bring it back. And it's like, wait, why? What have they won that leads you to think that all of a sudden you can't ruffle the feathers in that locker room or insert different opinions or inject different cultures and different, hey, this is our thought process. We did this here. We think that could be beneficial to you. Or, hey, I might call you out and I maybe have only been here for a year, but my track record indicates that, I can do that and it might be good for this football team. Again, I thought the Kenny Moore comments from a couple weeks ago, I thought that healthy tension was needed.
Yeah, I agree.
Maybe only lasted for 1 week in New York, but again, I thought that was something that was different and is not the end of the world there. So I guess to summarize it all, again, both of them probably it's a hair too much on the yelling side of it for my liking. But I guess if you want to play that Zaire clip from yesterday, Mark, do you have that? This was Zaire Franklin yesterday when asked about Pat McAfee and the feud.
I got a lot of respect for Pat. I understand exactly who he is to the organization, to our city. And quite frankly, I think, maybe I probably didn't handle it the right way going into it. Now, he said some things about me. So, that is what it is. But it's one band, one sound, man. We all a family. We all want the same thing. I think at the end of the day, Pat wants he wants to what's best for us. He wants us to win. He wants something to cheer about. He wants something to go on the show and scream about in a good way. And that's what I want for him. And at the end of the day, be in the locker room, me being the boots on the ground. I want to give our fans, I want to give our alumni something to be proud of and something to continue to cheer for. So there is no back and forth. There is no feud because at the end of the day, we want the same things.
Andy, I thought it was a great answer.
Great answer.
That's
a good answer.
I think it's spot on.
Humble answer.
And again, I think maybe the personal attacks is probably what really. And if I'm Zaire, understandable. I mean, hell, if you're throwing up my college resume on some ESPN show and going there, and obviously McAfee was upset about just the indirect nature. I think that Zaire had kind of come after him and put his picture in the thumbnail of a podcast segment. Again, a lot of this to some of our listening audience, they're like, "This is the most childish, stupidest thing in the world." But
it's awesome
welcome
at the
to
same time,
media here in 2024. So. I thought Zaire's answer again yesterday was outstanding.
Yeah, I thought Franklin was good. Coming up at 8:30, we'll play his thoughts on the Lions fans. I think for me, and we can wrap up the conversation on this with just a few things. This is what happens when you don't win and you have expectations. And it's what happens when Zaire Franklin wants to have a podcast. It is. Zaire has put himself into the media realm, he and EJ Speed, and God bless him for it. I listen to their podcasts occasionally. I mean, there's a lot going on sometimes, and it's hard to, as Mark knows, it's hard to dub their podcast over because there's a lot of profanity, okay? There's a lot of things that go down some roads, but again, I
believe he went MF, right?
Yeah, I mean, listen.
In reference to Patrick and direction.
And I like this stuff, but Micah Parsons in Dallas has had to answer questions for weeks about things that he has said, okay, for the last year and a half, I should say, on his podcast. So if Zaire is going to walk into Pat McAfee's world, and this is Pat McAfee's world, this kind of media stuff, okay, talking about the NFL, then he doesn't need to be so sensitive. And on the flip side, you know, McAfee lives in this area where he's probably not hearing some of the negativity as well. I'll also say that we can get mad at the players. But the construct of the team, is McAfee going to say something about Chris Ballard? The makeup of this team and the problems they have go back to the building of this team. The fact of the matter is that this team needed to go get some fresh voices over the last 2 years in the locker room, and they decided not to do it. And they decided to reward a team that did not make the playoffs. That's what they have done here. While some of these are very good players, bringing back Kenny Moore and bringing back Grover and and signing, if you think signing JT was the right thing, I'm not necessarily sure. I'm there. You run him one time in the second half on Sunday. Bringing back a leader and a guy who was tough as hell, like a Michael Pittman Jr. Like these are fine things, but in totality, like individually, you get it. But in totality, they just keep running it back with players that don't win in a team setting that doesn't win. And so I can understand why there's frustration. The majority of Colts fans are going to side with Pat McAfee and not the players on this team. I mean, I think Zaire Franklin probably saw that and probably figured it out sometime over the last 72 hours.
I don't know. I think the split, I mean, obviously McAfee's got an incredible following, but I did feel like there was a lot of people looking at Zaire and thought, okay, McAfee's going too far here with this. Now, again, I think if you can parse out the screaming and the yelling, I actually think there are some valid points that each of them are making. Zaire, I thought, spoke to it yesterday. And again, McAfee's comments, related to the locker room of what have you won. And then, again, I keep on coming back to this. It just, Ballard has this pedestal that he puts the locker room on, and McAfee points out some things that I think are accurate. If the locker room is such a sacred place and it's untouchable, then A, why haven't you won? Let's start there. And B, and there are a lot of great individuals inside that locker room, but B, you also had 6 to 7 dudes suspended in about a year span.
Oh, yeah.
You also had Anthony Richardson seemingly not knowing what the standard is from a work ethic standpoint and him having to be benched in the middle of his second season. If it's this great, everywhere. Incredible, oh my gosh, we can't insert anybody. We can't, ruffle any feathers in that locker room. Then why, on the field or off the field, is it not at more of a peak performance sort of level? I think that aspect to McAfee's thoughts there, I think is spot on.
You think the feud's over? I think it's probably about over. Who brings these two together? Someone who's the man or woman over there at the Colts who can bring these two together?
I don't. Matt Conti isn't getting paid enough to do that, so yeah.
No sports information staff
awful.
Is being paid enough to bring those two parties together.
I did think it was
it's a good football feud.
And I don't know, maybe McAfee left the game, but I don't think did they show him on the Jumbotron at all, Mark, during the game?
Yeah, you guys talked about this.
Not once, no.
They usually show him on the Jumbotron multiple times.
Well, sure.
I mean, he's literally doing his NFL Network hit 30 yards from Zaire Franklin, tackling a tackling dummy before the game.
Like legit, Kenny Moore was behind him catching passes when he was doing his NFL Network hit, I think. Yeah.
It was very awkward. I thought there was a chance if Zaire got a pick in the game, he might run over to the suite.
Well, I mean, that was the thing I was thinking. I was like, hey, if this escalates, he's right there. That's the best. I have seen that happen. I will not say names, but I have seen some good radio feud stuff. I was at the Final Four Radio Row. This would have been at least probably 4 or 5 years ago. And there was a radio individual beefing with another radio individual. And they were sitting about 15 feet away. And one of them turned his table the other way so they didn't see each other. And they never talked to each other, but they continued to battle on Twitter while sitting 15 feet from each other.
I mean, to be honest, outside of an Anthony Richardson chuck or two down the field, the most entertaining aspect of the season so far, you could say, has been Zaire versus Pat.
That's a pretty good one. But I thought Zaire was good yesterday. We shall see who takes which side. We'll see if it gets squashed. I have a feeling
And I think
it will.
fans will enjoy Zaire's thoughts on the Lions. The amount of Lions fans in the building. We'll play that coming up at 8:30.
Yeah, we will. I thought he was good on that as well. On the other side, 2 straight for the Pacers. Good win last night. Rick Carlisle, Pacers head coach. He joins us next here on The Fan.
Back-to-back wins for the Indiana Pacers. They'll go for 3 in a row coming up tomorrow night. And again, Friday, a reminder, that's an 8 o'clock tip with the Pistons, the tree lighting game, as they started off homestand very nicely. Tyrese Haliburton, outstanding last night. And to talk more about all of it, and a great event with one of the assistant coaches coming up later today, Rick Carlisle with us here. Coach, good morning to you. How are you?
I'm well. How are you?
We are great outside of the night for Tyrese Haliburton. What did you think was the difference last night and you guys holding on for that W?
Well, we just stuck together and we just found a way. I mean, these last couple of games haven't been the prettiest. There's been some uneven, arrhythmic aspects to both games, but it's really a great sort of team, stay together, slug it out, find a way. And, this difficult period has been difficult. And, we need today off to regroup a little bit, and then we got to get back at it tomorrow.
Coach, I'm wondering, it feels like, and I don't mean this as a slight, that at times you guys are in survival mode, right? You got to win games. You're an injured basketball team right now. How do you change your coaching, maybe your temperament, if at all, given that you guys are right now just trying to survive these next few weeks?
Well, really have to stay positive, but truthful. And so, we went through a tough thing last week. We were having some real struggles, and we weren't playing well, and we were letting things at one end of the floor affect the other end of the floor, and vice versa. And it manifested in a pretty ugly effort down in Houston. And so, the following day in Milwaukee, we had a get together with the team to talk very honestly about what was going on. But it wasn't a thing where there was finger pointing or anything like that. It was a statement of fact. It was a statement of, all of us got to be better. I wanted to hear what some of the leaders on the team had to say. And we needed to get back to the purity of the game and the purity and the beauty of the unselfishness of the game. And while we didn't win in Milwaukee, we had a very good effort, and we kept our energy internal. We kept our energy toward one another, and we fought hard the entire game, and it was something to build on. And then, the last couple games, we've gotten good results, and we've got to continue to work to play better, to play with more rhythm on offense, but to be very steadfast defensively. And these last couple of games, I think we're giving up an average of 106 per game, which are two very good efforts for us. And I know you guys are going to want to talk about Tyrese's shot making last night, but the last couple of games, he's really picked things up defensively too, as has everyone else, and it's made a big difference.
They hit a big steal or two in the fourth quarter last night, a couple big drives as well. That's the voice of Rick Carlisle here. Joins us every Tuesday at 8. I actually want to go to Quinton Jackson, if you don't mind, Coach. It's been fun watching him get an opportunity. First off, no fear whatsoever. I mean, he attacks when he gets the ball, hit a huge shot for you last night. What has kind of made you guys organizationally kind of stick with him? And then, I get that your hands are a little tied from an availability standpoint last night, but you've obviously given him a big, big opportunity in the starting lineup.
Yeah, he's a fighter. And, last year he was a part of our G League team. I don't recall whether he signed a two-way late in the year or not, but whatever the case, he was around. And he demonstrated that he was an amazing teammate in practices and around the games. He has a great vibe. He has a great spirit about him, as a guy that's always keeping his teammates up, etc. Whenever he went into games, whether it was the bad against or us, he was going hard and flying around and hitting people, and so right now, in the absence of, Neesmith, Nemhard, and Shepard in particular, with our, who are kind of our, those guys are our hit first defensive running wings. we needed somebody to guard the good perimeter players to start games. And so, we went to him in the starting lineup 3 or 4 games ago, whatever it was. And, look, you just know the guy is going to go hard. You're going to know he's out there. He's going to be on the floor for every loose ball. He's going to attack the rim with abandon. And last night, the 4 3-point shots he hit were the difference in the game.
Again, that is Rick Carlisle. Pacers win last night. That's 2 in a row for them. They'll have the Trailblazers coming up tomorrow night, 7 o'clock tip inside of Gamebridge Fieldhouse. Again, last night, you could say probably Tyrese's best game of the season. Certainly made some plays on both ends of the floor. When you, in your coaching history, Coach, when you've had a star that's gone through ups and downs in a season, how do you typically handle those conversations with such a player?
Oh gosh, it's wide ranging. I mean, Tyrese is a unique player. He's a star player, but he thrives in a system. And our system is depleted right now because of our injury situation. So he's had to adjust. And frankly, he's had to adjust to being a more gritty player at the defensive end. That has elevated his offense more than anything else. In my opinion, it's not just about that he's making shots now. That's not it. I mean, he's playing a more complete, well-rounded game, and his effort defensively is something that has elevated our group. And so, that's the main thing. And we got to keep the main thing the main thing. It's about the team, and it's about both ends of the floor.
Pacers head coach Rick Carlisle with us here on this Tuesday morning on the Wake Up Call on the Payless Liquors hotline. Last night, 14 points for Pascal Siakam. The 5 games before he went up over 20, but last night, good again. 7 rebounds, 7 assists, Coach. But I want to go back to the game against Washington where he pulled Haliburton aside after the game. And, Haliburton the last couple games, Coach, has talked about the leadership that Siakam has provided. How would you describe, especially in this, difficult stretch, the leadership that Siakam has provided not only to Haliburton but the rest of the team?
Appropriate. He's not a guy that is just constantly just talking and to talk and just say things. He picks spots. He's thoughtful. He's pensive. He very carefully considers what he says when he says it. And because of that, he's a guy that when he speaks up, people listen. And so I love everything he's done since he's been here. He really, he had a stretch during preseason where he wasn't playing well and wasn't into it, and we talked to him about it, and he got it fixed. He got in the gym early for practice a couple of days in a row, and he got things right. And when your leaders do that, it sets such a great example for the entire team. Not to mention the young guys. I mean, Mathurin and Walker right now. I mean, these guys are in a situation where there's a lot put on their plate, and it hasn't been real smooth at times, but these guys are learning an incredible amount about NBA responsibility. When you step up to the grown-ups table, and both of them had some sensational plays last night. But what everybody is finding is that consistency for young players is something that takes time, and so our veteran players have been very, very patient with both of those guys. I mean, Enrique Freeman, has been thrust into games this year, and so this has been an adventure, but everybody is very positive, and we are in a problem-solving mode, and we got to keep on pushing.
He is Rick Carlisle. He's with us every Tuesday here on the Wake Up Call. As always, we appreciate the coach's time. Benedict Mathurin hasn't shot it great the last couple of nights, Coach, but I continue to look and be like, wow, 9 rebounds for him. I thought he made a couple big hustle plays for you late last night. He has increased his rebounding total just in general. Let's focus there. How much of that was an off-season emphasis for him as he returned?
Well, he understood. I mean, he's a smart kid. We need help rebounding. And so he's responded very well there. And even though each game hasn't necessarily been a gaudy statistical night for him, the growth that he is experiencing, the respect that he is gaining with his teammates, is very, very important right now. And so, he's such a unique kid from such a unique background. He's been through a lot in his life, and when we had this day on Thursday where we had some tough conversations, within the team. And look, I took a lot of responsibility for our struggles too. I think everybody needed to be honest about it. And then we had a get together with the four guys in the starting lineup that had been together, that are kind of our statistical leaders. And we had been through some rough stuff. And it was Ben, Tyrese, Miles, and Pascal. And for the first time, Ben opened up and really talked to the group about his feelings about the opportunity that he was getting, the fact that he knew he wasn't perfect, and that he's really, really trying and really wants to win and wants to help them win. And it was just really an important moment. And there's been a change in spirit, since that day, not just because of what he was saying to those guys, but just the way our group is recommitted. And so, all this stuff is difficult. Winning in professional sports has never been tougher in any of these leagues. I mean, you ask the Colts. I mean, ask us. I mean, every league has become a hard play, smash mouth. If you don't play hard, you get your ass kicked league.
Pacers head coach Rick Carlisle with us. That's a great last sentence. That's a promo, Coach, and I think you're exactly right. You guys, the last couple nights, have got kind of the fruits of that labor. All right, so Thanksgiving's around the corner, Coach. What's the perfect Thanksgiving plate for Rick Carlisle? What does that look like?
Well, it's turkey. It's some kind of stuffing that doesn't have too many onions in it, and has good gravy. Veggies, carrots, whatever. What else? Mashed potatoes. You got to have mashed potatoes. And then for me, the most important thing is that the pumpkin pie is chilled.
Okay.
Interesting.
Okay, so it's got to spend time, a couple hours in the refrigerator then?
Oh yeah. No,
okay.
It's got to pretty much come out of the fridge right at the right moment.
Whipped cream?
Sure.
Oh, you have to. Yeah.
Are you in the kitchen, Coach, on Thursday, or are you more just mingling with? I don't know if Abby's coming back in town, or
we're going to some friends of ours' house when we've done this the last every year that we've been back here. This time, it's good friends of ours who are physicians that Donna worked with at Riley Children's Hospital when she was here before, and so they're doing all the stuff with food. We bring a couple of things, obviously, and we've had some very festive days. So we'll look forward to that, but not before we get ready for the game tomorrow against Portland.
Certainly, and I want to make a mention of this today. It's a great event. Lloyd Pierce has got his coat drive coming up over the Horizon House that's nearby, just off Washington Street, past the 65-70 split here. So that is from 3 to 5 today. Again, coat drive. Lloyd Pierce, Pacers assistant, of course. You'll have Aaron Neesmith, Jarris Walker make a couple appearances out there for that. So that is from 3 to 5 o'clock today over at the Horizon House.
Yeah, and I think, and I'm pretty certain that there will be some other Pacer players there. And last year, there were several hundred coats that were donated. It was an amazing event. Winters in Indy get cold, and the need for coats is always there. And so this is a very important event. And Lloyd does a lot of great things in the community. He does a lot of great things in the community that nobody knows about either. So, very fortunate to have a special guy like him on the staff.
Well, kudos to you and kudos to Lloyd, certainly, for what you guys are doing on that end. Coach, a happy Thanksgiving to you and the family. Congrats on the win last night, and we'll look forward to watching tomorrow night.
Cheers. Take care.
Rick Carlisle there with the morning cheers to us here on the wake-up call. I think we could all get behind that plate right there. I mean, no onions with the stuffing. I think
that to me is key.
Yeah, I mean, I'm good with that. I don't need onions in the stuffing.
I was actually, we've had Rick Carlisle on for, the better part of a year and a half. I think I've never agreed with him more than the overuse of onions in the stuffing on Thanksgiving Day.
I'll be honest, I don't think there's a Thanksgiving-related dish that I have come around on more in my life maturation than stuffing.
Really?
15-year-old me would look at it and be like, all those colors in there? That looks awful.
See, I've always loved stuffing, so I'm the opposite. It's I will fully admit, number 2 on my list, probably.
I've had a palate of a third grader for a long, long time.
Fair enough.
So it's taken some time to evolve a bit here, but I'm all aboard that. I mean, turkey, stuffing, no onions, veggies, carrots, mashed potatoes, and boy, was he adamant about the chilled pumpkin pie.
Oh, I was yelling, hell yeah, too. Chilled pumpkin pie is the best.
And Carlisle's got it right. You're not hosting at your house. You go to someone else's house, you bring a couple dishes, you're good to go. That's the way to do it.
It's a good schedule for the Pacers. You get the off day on Thursday
it's
there.
Perfect, isn't it?
Hopefully you get a W last night. It'll be their first 3-game win streak of the year on that end. So
I imagine Kevin's Thanksgiving plate used to be like cut up hot dogs and mac and cheese. Like, okay, Kevin, your plate's ready.
Mac and cheese.
It's a great question. What did it used to look like? It is a great question. Given
I was in charge of mac and cheese for a while.
Okay.
My mom was like, well, it's probably the only thing he's really going to touch on the plate. I mean, let's be honest. The Thanksgiving meal stinks largely.
That's a hot take right there.
I mean, we don't eat it at any other time of year. When are you ever like, hey, let's have turkey and stuffing tonight?
Let's go buy a $70 turkey and go take care of that.
Yeah.
I will say,
do you have the cranberry sauce ready to go on June 22nd?
Fresh out of the can.
Turkey's at least easy to make, but some people mess it up, which always confuses me. A lot of dry turkey. You got to watch out for the dry turkey. Not good. I mean, you don't want dry turkey. You have a great day of football. I mean, you have Giants, Cowboys. You have the Bears.
Sign me up.
Yeah, you have the Lions and Bears at noon. I mean, what are we doing?
I can't believe we got Giants, Cowboys.
You know what this week also does on Thursday? You got to make sure your fantasy teams and your NFL bets don't ruin your Thanksgiving Day.
Yeah.
Is that a good way to put it? Because
Uh-huh.
I'm already looking at them like, I don't know what to do with some of these guys.
Well, I'm looking at my line. There's Thursday, there's Friday, there's Sunday, there's Monday.
God.
I think I'm starting the Cowboys defense.
Oh my
that's
God.
Probably a good one to start.
Is that a good idea or no?
I don't think it's a bad one. Like David Montgomery left the Colts game early. Am I starting him?
I know.
What am I going to do? Yeah, I don't know how injured he is. I have no idea what to do with him, and I'm not going to know. And now he gets 2 or 3 extra, doesn't get the extra days to rest. What do you have, a shoulder injury? Yeah, he can't rest it up. Come on.
Just a reminder, again, we'll have obviously Pacer games coming up Wednesday and Friday on our airwaves. We'll adjust a little bit, but we'll have all 6 IHSA state final games. Kyle Nenrup going to join us top of the hour. For that, of note, we've got our first ever all Hoosier Crossroads Conference final in 6A. That's a Westfield-Brownsburg rematch. They played that game on Saturday earlier this year because of Hurricane Helene on that one. That was a Brownsburg W. Fort Wayne Lures is your only returning state champ. They've bumped up a class to 3A this year. And you have 3 teams that lost in the state finals last year back trying to revenge there. That would be Adams Central in 2A, Heritage Hills against Lures in 3A, and the Fighting Eddie Garrisons, Decatur Central in 5A. So again, even classes Friday, 11 a.m., 3 and 7. Odd classes on Saturday, also 11 a.m., 3 and 7.
I was going to ask you, speaking of Eddie Garrison, is he calling one of these games? Who are the announcers for these games? I hate to ask that us on the air, but let's go.
Yeah, I believe he's part of the broadcast crew, so you'll have all hands on deck. I don't want to leave anybody out, but the Greg Rakestraws and the Mark Janes, and I'm sure Pat Boylan, and I'm sure Jeremiah Johnson on Saturday will be involved. Eddie Garrison. Can John Herrick's fit it in around the bucket game? Scott Agnes. Who am I forgetting?
Well, really, this is a state
Jimmy Cook.
This is a state championship for Greg Rakestraw. They need to present him a trophy after these games.
Yeah.
I mean, he's our guy.
His Saturday schedule is probably the 2A the Class A and the probably 5A game, and then in the afternoon he'll probably go to like Marion University soccer.
Go call 2 games there. You're right.
Right.
And he'll nail them all. Good
Nail
job.
them all.
I need to see if I know anyone coming up for the Providence. I live like 5 minutes from them.
Is our only undefeated matchup. North Judson and Providence. That is the Class A game on that. New Pal, of course, undefeated. They're playing East Noble Friday afternoon at 3. And again, Westfield Brownsburg. That is your 6A state title. Brownsburg, it's been quite a while for them.
Isn't that's your crew, Mark? Right?
Let's go Bulldogs.
Fighting Mark
There
Dykton.
you go. You're spending
Against
a lot
the
of
fighting junior Colts, right? Cato June's son and
Oh, is
Anthony
he?
Richardson's little brother.
So who's who?
Who's
Do we-
running the triple
Do
option?
we still have a Ballard kid on the team? Warsaw.
Okay.
The Tigers of Warsaw.
Gotcha. That's who I'm backing. I need to write that down.
I'm all
Ask
in
Kyle,
on
I need to ask Kyle about that.
Sorry,
The triple
Decatur
option.
Central. I'm all in on
Sorry.
an option team.
Yeah, I'm all good to go. I thought some of the Carlisle stuff was interesting. I think he's very honest. I thought he answered that question pretty well, that, we have to be forceful and honest with the team, but we also have to understand what we're going through. And, I didn't ask him this, but, last week, or was it 2 weeks ago, we asked him about the brawl, of course, the 20-year anniversary of that. And, his answer with that, and not to equate it to this, but you'll understand where I'm going, his answer to that was, part of it was gratifying that we coached our way through it, won a playoff series, got into the playoffs, and kept our head above water. And I think, you never know what each season is going to bring. And for this Pacer team, winning games like Portland and Detroit and, can you beat Toronto next Tuesday? You lost to them earlier, Brooklyn on Wednesday, that Wednesday next week, that doubleheader, Toronto, Brooklyn. Can you win games like that, right, against teams that you don't think are going to be playoff teams, keeping their head above water? At the end of the year, if this is a team that is, again, in position in the playoffs, not the play-in, in the playoffs, and can make a run at the end of the year, there is going to be something gratifying, I would imagine, for Rick Carlisle to be able to coach through, 3, 4, 5 guys at a time that are just not going to be able to play night in, night out.
Yeah, and again, I don't know if I walked in here and if you're a Pacer fan, you're happier more last night about the win or that Haliburton looked like that. I mean, Haliburton, that was a $200 million night.
Right.
34, 13 assists, 2 turnovers. I mean, just think about that stat line. It's, it was kind of a reminder of like when they flashed it up there. Like if any other player on the Pacers had that stat line, it'd be like, have a parade for him. But that's what he's capable of. And I thought it was, on the second night of the back-to-back, you'd think, hey, what about his injury situation? People have, why are the home road splits, all this stuff. And he was outstanding last night. Much needed on that end. All right, coming up in a few, we'll play that Zaire-Franklin clip for those that had some thoughts on how many Lions fans were in the building. I thought Zaire had a pretty enlightening answer on that yesterday. Andy Swinney, go ahead and lead us off with the morning checkdown.
The morning checkdown, brought to you by Butler Bulldogs. Dogs return to action inside Hinkle Fieldhouse Tuesday, December 3rd against Eastern Illinois. Visit butlersports.com/buy tickets.
Yeah, if you miss any of Carlisle, you can check it out. Podcast Center shortly here, 1075thefan.com. 114-110, that's your final last night. The Pacers get the win. Now back-to-back wins. Of course, the Blazers coming up on Wednesday. Tyrese Haliburton, you just talked about it there. Hit 9 threes last night, plus 16 for the game as well. 34 points, 13 assists. Pascal Siakam, 14, 7, and 7 in all 5. All 5 starters there in double figures. One thing we have not talked about today with the Pacer game, KB, what do you think it is? One thing. The Quinton Jackson dunk that he almost had, but he got blocked.
Oh, yeah. Well,
if you would have dunked that.
how about the alley-oop at the end?
Yeah. No, you're
That
spot
was one of those,
on.
no, yeah.
Yeah, that's exactly what it was. Was it Missy? Is that how you say his name? Missy,
Yeah, he
I
was
believe.
pretty good.
Hey, yeah, he's not too bad. He had 16 last night for him. If Jackson finishes that dunk, that's one of those, you see these things on Twitter, like a pickup game where someone dunks on someone and all the kids run onto the court and you'd have to stop the game. Yeah. If Jackson lands that dunk, you have to stop. You call a timeout, you give him 30 seconds.
Yeah, I think Willie Green, honestly, would need a timeout just for the sheer embarrassment of that end. All right, off day today for the Colts. Again, it's 13 straight weeks of football for them and the Patriots. They're meeting up here Sunday afternoon at 1 o'clock. I think we're back to Spiro Ditas duties here coming up in Week 13 for the Colts. And it looks like, while they are a slight favorite in this one, 2.5 points. Some injury situations here. Josh Downs, reports are week to week for a shoulder injury. Tanner Bortolini, the starting center, in concussion protocol. On that end, could be Ball State product Danny Pinter getting the start here coming up on Sunday. So we'll go over that here upcoming. But again, off day for the Colts today as they need wins, and they need a lot of them, and they do have the easiest schedule in the NFL over the final 5 weeks of the season.
Yeah, I mean, they need to go at least 4-1. 5-0 would be difficult. They need to go 4-1.
4-1 has to include the Denver
game. And it
game.
has to include the Denver Broncos. Quickly, college basketball last night. What a great day yesterday. The Maui Invitational straight up delivered. You had UConn over Memphis, you had Memphis over UConn, upset there, 99-97. That went to overtime. Dan Hurley, I mean, he may have lost the game for his team, going nuts. He got a technical late in that game. Auburn coming from behind, down 16 KB at halftime, as Auburn, number 4, beat Iowa State, number 5, 83-81, your final there. North Carolina, 92-90 over Dayton. That game came right down to the end as well. Xavier won last night. Arkansas won, top 25 teams. And then, obviously, coming up tomorrow, you're going to have Indiana-Louisville. That's the big one we'll be watching at high noon.
3 Maui thoughts. We'll always remember Luke Herringody and Kyle McElharney hitting a million threes, and Notre Dame getting to the title game of that.
Of course.
Back, 15 years ago. 2, we did our honeymoon in Maui. I thought to myself, do you think I could talk Maddie into going to the Lahaina Civic Center?
Oh, I think that would be a fun trip. Is Notre Dame going anytime soon?
Well, no, I mean, this was for our honeymoon.
Oh, you mean just for the honeymoon, yeah.
So I brought it up, and other things decided to be planned instead of that. Unfortunately, we didn't make it to the Lahaina Civic
She was
Center.
asking for an annulment at that point.
Yeah. Did you go snorkeling instead?
Yeah, I think we
Is
were.
that what you did?
Yeah.
I would love to go. It's like that, and the Bahamas trips. They're so expensive, but it's like you get there and everything is just so expensive. That's the problem. I've known people that have went, but boy, I mean,
just love that
it's
gym.
$100 a pizza.
Just something about that gym. Every time I see it on my TV, it just makes me smile. In all seriousness, great to see that area is doing well after those horrific fires a couple years ago. And one of my early sports memories, and maybe you two probably won't, this won't necessarily resonate for you. Do you guys have any memories of Ball State getting to the Maui Championship?
No, I don't.
2001, I'm going to guess.
Wow.
2,
Okay.
something around there. Tim Buckley as their head coach.
Yeah. How do I
They
not
beat
remember that?
Kansas and UCLA with Patrick Jackson and I think it was Theron Smith. They were a great, God, that was such a fun run. That was kind of one of my early-ish, oh wow, this is a vivid sports memory that's going to stay with me for a long, long time. Clearly, it has there. So a great moment of Ball State basketball here on this Tuesday morning.
Let me ask you this. What's the name of the Notre Dame's in the one in Vegas coming up tomorrow or tonight? They play late tonight. Rutgers at 10:30. What's the name of that one? Do you know off the top of your head?
You play in it and you get $1 million for your NIL.
Is that what it is?
I have no idea what the name is.
It's the Players Era Impact Festival. Okay, that's what it is.
Well, if it's Vegas, it's got to be a festival.
It's got to be something. I mean, you have big games tonight. Besides your Notre Dame game, you have Houston, Alabama, Kansas, Duke, Auburn, North Carolina. It's a big day of college basketball.
Again, Notre Dame tips with Houston at 12:30 in the morning tomorrow. Can you imagine staying up to watch your team turn the ball over 27 times against Kelvin Sampson?
I assume you're coming in early to watch it on the TV in the studio. And
we have the day off.
Tomorrow?
Yeah, I mean, so tonight they play at 10:30.
Right, and then the next
technically,
day.
it's Thursday morning. It's Wednesday night, Thursday morning, technically.
Okay,
that
makes more sense.
Are you staying up tonight?
Hell yeah.
Okay.
Oh, of course.
Okay.
1,000%.
You're going to know whether you're an NIT team this week? Do you feel that way?
Stop that. Yeah, probably. Probably on that
You
end.
need to get one of these. Rutgers isn't ranked, by the way.
Yeah, Curtis points out here. I know they just lost to Kennesaw State, but they have all these top 5 picks, I thought. Yeah, that was before the gym had AC. I remember them cramping and over on the side. And yeah, exactly. Gosh, that was such a fun week. I remember that like it was yesterday. I have nothing else on my end. I just ranted about Maui. Monday Night Football. John Harbaugh beat Jim.
Yeah, they gave a nice hug before the game, a nice hug after the game. 3-0, John
Derrick
Harbaugh
Henry,
against
very
his brother.
good at football. Lamar Jackson, very good at football. Yeah.
The numbers are going around. Josh Jacobs, Saquon Barkley, and Derrick Henry going to different teams. That's been pretty good for those different teams.
It has worked out quite well
this season. Let's take a break. Coming up on the other side, what did Zaire-Franklin say about all the Lions fans in attendance in Lucas Oil on Sunday? We'll let you hear that, and we'll do it next. Appreciate you hanging out with us halfway through on this Tuesday on The Fan.
I want this song playing when I walk in for Thanksgiving on Thursday.
I was kind of doing a little dance. I forgot.
I was ready to go.
I haven't heard this song in probably 5 years. I like that song.
Chest bump my nephew. He goes flying across the kitchen. Let's go.
Does your nephew know about Ludacris?
I kind of doubt it. I'm gonna go out on a lim and say no.
Okay, yeah. I
But
would.
He should.
He should. Well, you can teach him.
Coming up, college football rankings. What does IU need to see tonight? 8 o'clock. The announcement on that. We'll hit that upcoming. Also, a couple interesting things to note on the Kurt Cignetti contract. We'll share some thoughts on that. Just kind of lingering from the Colts and Lions game. How many fans in the building there from Detroit? I thought Zaire Franklin and Michael Pittman Jr. We don't have time to play both, but we'll play the Zaire clip here. I thought both of them had the exact answers you would want to hear from two of your leaders and referencing that. Again, to be fair, the Detroit faithful has kind of done this season to a couple of different venues, and obviously this is, when you look at their road schedule, this is probably the most drivable game. I don't know, maybe at Chicago would be the only other one that kind of fits that bill. So you expected a lot in there. There were a lot in there. What did Zaire Franklin think of all the Lions fans?
Play better, first and foremost. That's what they want. That's what they demand. I understand it. I hear it. Definitely, tough, hearing, some chance for the Lions or so. But, I understand, what's been going on this year. I'm not a stranger to that. And, but at the end of the day, we got to do our job. We got to defend the home field, give them something to cheer about, give them something to show up to. So, that's just something that we got to take personally, continue to try to play better in front of our home crowd.
I actually did. Okay, so I think I disagree now, having a day to
really?
think about it.
I thought it was a spot-on answer.
No, Zaire's fine. I actually think that the way the Colts play, if they were 13-3, 14-2 Manning years, maybe that's different, but how many teams are doing that now? It's the Chiefs and who else? There's really nobody else. Maybe the Lions, obviously, they're one of those teams. The reason I bring that up is I don't know if they were, a 6 seed in the playoffs. I kind of still feel like a lot of people are going to sell their tickets to Lions fans and make $400 a ticket.
Yeah, you're obviously going to have people that would do that, but you might have a little bit more of a reluctancy to it.
Yeah, a few hundred less that do it, maybe.
If Anthony Richardson had a game or two like he did against the Jets maybe earlier before you made that decision with the Lions tickets, perhaps it's a bigger crowd. I just think in general, Zaire is spot on, though. If you are putting a better product on the field, you're not going to have as many willing. Again, I'm not here to tell people what to do with their finances. I totally understand why you would want to receive the type of return on investment you would have gotten from Lions fans there. But I think in a weird way, like what Zaire is saying there, Pat McAfee is saying in a much more demonstrative way.
Right. They're cousins of each other. The conversations are close to each other. They really are,
and back in the 7:30 segment, for those that missed it, we played kind of the Zaire Franklin, Pat McAfee back and forth feud of everyone is upset with the Colts not playing better football. People are just showing it in different ways. Pat McAfee showing it in a very demonstrative way on the biggest network in sports.
Right.
Zaire Franklin is showing it in a little bit more of a high road words that you just heard there, and some Colts fans are showing it by not showing up to their home stadium on Sunday. I think everybody is feeling the same way. They're frustrated. They're pissed. You haven't won a division title in 10 years. You had this awkward benching of your quarterback midseason. You need a lot of help to get back into the playoff picture the rest of the way. Like, all of that is rooted in the same general thought of you want better. So I think everyone is kind of, singing from the same hymnal. It's just people sound a little differently when they're singing, i.e. me.
Don't you think if they were playing better and like more in the playoff hunt too, those tickets would not have been sold as much because people are like, they actually could probably hang with the Lions. We might actually have a chance here.
It would be different. I think this year has been a collection of here's the problem with this season. You had a collection of teams enter Lucas Oil that was the perfect storm. You have the Lions, who are first or second best team, whatever you want to put them, in the NFL. You had Mark Dykton's Chicago Bears, who it doesn't matter how bad they are.
They are always bad.
Yeah, and they're always bad, it seems like. The Bears fans are going to show up. You have the Buffalo fan base that, they feed on people kissing their backside about how crazy of a fan base they are. And then you're the Steelers. And then you're the Steelers in the terrible towel.
Well, three of those teams hardly ever play here. The Bears, first time in 8 years.
Right.
Lions, first time in 8 years.
Yes.
Bills, first time since 2018. Josh Allen didn't play. So I think when you add up all of that, it was kind of the perfect storm, if you will. Pittsburgh, obviously, is kind of an annual thing.
And they saw him last year. I think the frustrating thing for fans is this year was about providing hope. And unless Anthony Richardson is going to do something here in the final month and a half of the season, and he very well could. I mean, you could look at this past week and say he did some really good things. He built on some of those things we saw in New York. That's fine. But if he doesn't do that, or doesn't do it as much as you want, then you don't have the feel good of your quarterback and you don't have the feel good of being a playoff team. I think what's frustrating for me, because I'm not as hot takey on the fans, I understand it. I'm not saying I always agree with it, but if you can make a ton of money and pay that forward, and hey, listen, if you take that money and keep buying season tickets, what are the Colts going to say? We don't know what Jim Irsay thinks about that. And like the conversations when you lose a game, and you lose a game the way that you did on Sunday, and then you combine that with the Lions fans or any fan base taking over your stadium, and given that it's now happened a few times, what does Irsay think? And what's the fallout for what Irsay thinks? And it's been nothing the last several years. There hasn't been a lot of so-and-so's going to pay the price because of losing and because of the fans.
But when is the straw on the camel's back?
It's a great question, and I don't know the answer. That's the problem.
If you think about the two previous home games before Detroit, Andy, Boo Birds in the first quarter with Joe Flacco throwing picks. And really, Buffalo won that game by 3 scores. I'm not counting Alec Pierce's touchdown at the buzzer. And then the game before that, you score 16 points against the Dolphins team without Tua. You want to talk about boring? Just like lack of entertainment. Yes, you won the game, but people have walked out of Lucas Oil Stadium just feeling so just like blah and dejected in general. And you couple all that up and you see the secondary ticket market. A lot of it makes sense. Why that crowd looked like the way it did. And again, it's a perfect storm on both sides of it. The Colts side and Detroit side of it of, oh my gosh, the best season in franchise history. Again, the first time they play here in 8 years. So I just thought from your leader, those are the comments you would like to hear. Obviously, what you would like is a better product on the field, but I think those are the comments you would like to hear, not bitching and moaning about our fans need to stand behind us and this and that. And again, this is kind of where I go back to the 7:30 part, and Zaire wants Pat McAfee to do what Mike Woodson wants Brian Evans to do. And it's like ESPN's not paying Pat McAfee to be a Colts cheerleader.
No, he's not.
And when John has Brian Evans on, he's not asking him to be an IU cheerleader. He's asking him to give an honest opinion from a great player who used to play at that program. And so I think that's where you get these blurred lines sometimes with the ex-players in media. And Peyton, I know, has done some Denver games. If Peyton Manning did constant Denver-Indy games on the Manning cast, or Eli does Giants games, you want honesty.
Yeah.
You don't want some bias like...
No, you don't need homerism when your team's struggling.
Thoughts on that.
That's not what you need.
Again, Tom Brady with the Patriots, obviously, and Greg Olsen with the teams he played for, et cetera, et cetera. So that's where I would probably side with McAfee a little bit and like, no, I want honesty. That's what I want.
If it's any consolation, the 2025 home opponent slate is not very good. So I don't think people will be selling their tickets for astronomical prices.
Who is it besides the AFC South teams?
You've got the Broncos, the Raiders, the Cardinals, the Niners.
NFC West.
And as of now, the AFC East TBD, which would be the Dolphins.
Okay, yeah. Those fan bases, they'll have some fans, but
they don't travel
it
as
won't
hard.
be Chicago or Buffalo or Detroit.
The road slate for the Colts next year will, I think, be their longest road trips ever.
Yeah,
they are
really
at Seattle. They have both LA teams on the road.
Kansas City.
And I think there's a sleeper chance they could be an international team.
Sure.
Remember, the Colts have to be one of the only teams in the NFL to have yet to give up a home game for their international game.
It's a good point.
When they went to...
It's a very good point.
London for the Jacksonville game, it was a Jacksonville home game.
It was a Jacksonville
game.
game.
When they went to Germany 2 years ago, that was New England's home game. Mark, do they have the extra home game next year?
They do not. I'm looking at it right now. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. No, they have 8.
Those are good games to go to. If you're a good team or a good enough team, Seattle, I'd love to go to that stadium. Kansas City is always, that's fun. Have some barbecue.
Certainly.
And be outside. So
certainly.
We shall see. Again, going back just quickly, that Steeler game was September 29th. You've been 2 months of boring football in Lucas Oil. I mean, you have. You've been 2 months of losing and or boring football. Who is not boring? Kirk Cignetti, his contract details came out yesterday. What surprised us the most? We'll dive into that next on The Fan on a Tuesday.
We'll get a little deeper into the Bucket game coming up tomorrow. Again, the first night game ever in Bucket history. Purdue fans just want the season to end. IU fans are freaking out about what the rankings could look like here. Just two polar opposite fan bases at this point. Again, all reports from West Lafayette indicate that Mike Babinski is leaning towards keeping Ryan Walters. I think if that happens, you would have to assume massive staff changes, and I would assume very quickly. Signing day, Andy, is December 4th.
Transfer portals, let's go, baby.
Right after that.
Portal and everything else. The problem with this game is, if Purdue were a 4-win team, you'd be like, okay, I've seen them win some games. If they had a marquee win this season, you would say, I've seen them win a game or two that maybe they should not have won. There is a road that takes you to where they could upset Indiana. I don't see the road to where they can upset Indiana. Purdue's been so bad this season.
Part of why I love watching coach press conferences is I love how they describe bad teams. How are they going to spin this on me, okay? So Shane Steichen begins yesterday describing the Patriots as they play hard.
Okay.
When the coach says the first thing is they play hard, that usually means they stink.
Yeah, but didn't 2 weeks ago, didn't the New England staff and players all say they were soft? Wasn't that the thing?
Shane Steichen's got a different tune for you here.
Okay.
Marcus Freeman, and again, USC, I think actually is a decent football team and can give Notre Dame a game. He went with they've led in every game this season in the fourth quarter. USC has led in every single loss this season.
I didn't know that.
That has me worried now. So, again, the worry level a little different for Notre Dame. I'm watching the Kurt Cignetti press conference yesterday. I'm like, how quickly is he going to mention Purdue's second half against Illinois?
That's a great point. Well, a close game against Michigan State last week as well. They had a chance to tie the game, dropped a touchdown.
He got it in there pretty early.
Yeah, okay.
The Illinois second half, bringing that up and explaining on the road the quality of that. We did see numbers on Kurt Cignetti's buyout. Anything stand out to you? Or just contract in general, I guess. Anything stand out to you from that?
Yeah, I think a few things. Number one, so he's going to make about $8 million a year. That's just a huge chunk of change. It comes from different avenues. But, when all is said and done, it's about $7 million. And then he's going to keep going with that retention bonus, which we already knew. The on-field, or not on-field, the salary for assistant coaches.
Yeah, that's a big number, right?
It's more than double. They're going to get $11 million per year for on-field staff salary. So, my expectations then, and this is probably more of a Purdue conversation because they need better assistant coaches, you would imagine, is, now you can go out. If Cignetti wants an offensive coordinator or defensive coordinator, and you want to go with the big boys and pay someone $2 million, 1.5, 1.8, whatever it may be, to be your OC or DC, you can go do that. And that number is ahead of some of the big boys. I know Osterman brings up Iowa, for instance, but that is ahead of some of the big boys in the Big Ten. And then the only other thing, the two buyout numbers, the two buyout numbers, if a team wants Cignetti, it starts this year at 13.9 or 13 mil. And it goes down. So, next year, if someone hired Cignetti, the school would owe about 10 mil. The reason I bring this up, and I was interested in this, is I covered for years Mark Stoops at Kentucky. And you think of Kentucky football, bad football, Indiana football, bad football. Mark Stoops revived that program and was given a new contract by Mitch Barnhart to where there was no buyout if a team wanted him. So, Notre Dame never would. But if Notre Dame said, I'm going to hire Mark Stoops, Kentucky got nothing for it. And I know you make so much money with these TV deals and how much, if you pay someone $5-6 mil, what does that matter? But I think it does matter, and I think it can help keep your coach. And so, these are big numbers, 13, then it goes to 10, then 9, then 8, then 6. So you're going to pay, especially the first 4 or 5 years, if someone were to go, hey, I want Kirk Cignetti, you're going to pay Indiana a lot of money on the way out. And then, I just, those were, I guess, the main things I found interesting. The last thing was, it's in his contract that he gets 85% of his contract unless he makes the Big Ten or college football playoff. Then he gets 100% of his contract. But that includes this year. and they're going to make the college football playoff. I mean, all the numbers have them as a 98% chance of making the playoff. So the second they go and put Indiana in that playoff in a couple weekends, Kirk Cignetti's deal, they will owe him 100% of the deal if they were to fire him in 3 or 4 seasons, which they're not.
College football rankings come out tonight, 8 o'clock. I think it's a nerdy thing to look at, but I think it really matters. That assistant coach pool is probably the thing that stood out to me the most, Andy. And, I'm speaking from a Notre Dame standpoint. Notre Dame has retained Al Golden. I think that's a name that some people will remember as, certainly Miami head coach, Temple, been in the NFL, Super Bowl assistant head coach or a Super Bowl assistant coach. The fact that they've been able to retain him and pay him the amount of money they have as defensive coordinator is the only reason why Notre Dame is going to be, if they win on Saturday, hosting a first-round playoff game. So for Indiana, and whether it's Bryant Haynes defensively or Mike Shanahan or Tino Sinceri offensively, retaining these guys and having them hopefully not go and be the OC at whatever, Bama or, Texas or Georgia, or go take the, MAC level job is huge. And if you can pay them $11 million for that pool, if you can pay those guys
a lot of money,
north of $1 million and maybe even a couple, that is huge. And retention, keeping continuity there. Because, again, Curt Cignetti, yes, he's mainly an offensive guy, but he likes to CEO it up. And so I think that is a huge aspect to those details that came out yesterday.
I don't know. Does Notre Dame have this? Does Notre Dame have like a general manager for all the NIL stuff? That would be something I'd be interested in on what Indiana is going to do with that going forward. You got to pay someone, $1 million and a half to be your general manager to pinpoint guys you want in the portal and
your director of player personnel. You see a lot of people call that.
You see a lot of that. I think you see a little bit more of that actually in college basketball right now. I mean, they straight up call them general managers in college basketball. I'm wondering how that will go, but it is with the buyout numbers and what's guaranteed and the private play numbers that he gets and just the salary and the retention bonus, it's basically, I feel like, a 100% great deal for Kirk Cignetti. Is it not? Not even 99%. It's 100% great for Kirk Cignetti.
If I made you pick 27.5, IU cover or no?
IU cover. Yep.
28.5, excuse me. Does that change your opinion?
Does not change my opinion.
Mark Dykton?
Not at all.
Yeah. Does it with you? Don't do this. Don't do this with
Purdue.
Purdue. Don't do it.
Not right before Thanksgiving.
Yeah, Ryan Walters doesn't need this.
Did Purdue cover last week?
Yes, they did.
Did Indiana cover?
Well, one faced
Did the
Ohio,
Colts cover?
One faced
Did
Ohio
the Pacers
State.
cover, Mark, on that all-Indiana bet we were talking about on Friday?
Kevin, don't do it again.
Did the Pacers cover last night with that late bucket? I should have looked that up. It ended up being, a 4-point game?
I thought it was 6. Or did it fall to 4?
I thought it was 5 something.
That's my point. If it was 5.5 or 5, it was a 6-point game.
I thought the spread was right around 6.
And then it became a 4-point game with that bucket in the final seconds.
It is wild for Purdue of okay, assuming Ryan Walters is retained and all these coaches will be fired on Sunday. I mean, what a weird feeling. Here you are, half prepping, half thinking about your next job. The game ends at 10:30 and you're gone by 9 a.m. the next morning? We haven't. I was talking to a former Purdue player the other day, and he was like, I wish Mike Babinski would come out and say something. One way or the other. Do you like that Florida has said something on Billy Napier, or are you nervous about the rest of the games played and how that can look?
I was worried that they would go back on their word, but actually Florida's been since they named
the Ole Miss one was huge.
Lagway, they've been 4-1. By the way, Chad Bowden, thank you to Brandon, is your general manager. Is that your guy?
Huge.
I did not know that. Does Indiana have one of those?
If Maddie knew how much I knew about Chad Bowden, she'd be disgusted.
Would she really? I'm seeing him right now.
Oh, he's huge.
Yeah.
Just a great guy. I think Michigan tried to pry him away. Not so fast.
All right, so who is it? We got to take a break. Chad Bowden, or who's the guy who's your assistant on the basketball staff?
Ryan Owens. I love me some Ryan Owens.
If I made you pick
I got to go Ryan Owens.
Oh, you're going
It's always
Owens?
Notre Dame basketball.
Okay,
I can't believe we lost to Elon. Have we not talked about this?
Boy, is that a quad 4 loss at home to Elon?
I dug some digging on Elon's schedule. They were beating North Carolina with 5 minutes to go earlier in the season. That gives me a little bit more hope.
Don't do too much digging on Elon. You might get shadow banned on his social media.
I was about to say, you won't have Twitter anymore. You have to go to Blue Sky with some other people. Anyway.
Such a dad joke by you two on that
end. It really is. All right, let's take a break. Coming up on the other side, who wins, who loses? We'll talk some high school sports. We'll do it next. 9 o'clock hour on The Fan.
For some reason, these music re-entries today from Mark Dykton, I want this on my Thanksgiving playlist.
It's like my high school
Everybody
mix.
come to the table.
Yeah. It's my high school mix when I had an iPod.
Teach your nephew about Ludacris and the next episode.
Ripping music off the internet with LimeWire.
I want to be at the Dykton household here for Thanksgiving. Is that what?
Putting viruses.
We are getting.
Put your nephew on your knee. This is Nate Dogg.
YouTube to MP3 converter. Hopefully that'll appear into my iPod shuffle.
I still use that with Shane Steichen press conferences sometimes. Yeah, I do. Yeah, it's the best way to convert it. That way I don't have to sit there for 8 minutes and dub it over. People don't care about that.
Kyle Nenrip from the Star planning to join us here in a few minutes. Again, we'll have all 6 of those IHSA state final games on our airwaves. Coming up here at 9 o'clock hour, we'll get more on that Josh Downs injury. I thought that was odd. He went back in the game, to be honest with you, on Sunday. Sounds like he could miss this New England game. What did that mean earlier in the season? We'll go over that. Honestly, when I saw that news yesterday, you know what popped into my head?
What's that?
I was reminded of how stupid the Nick Cross tackle was of Josh Downs in training camp.
God, you're not wrong.
That tackle meant Josh Downs didn't play the first 2 games of the season. What happened the first 2 games of the season?
You really could have used him in that Green Bay game. Yeah, big time.
You lost both games by 1 possession.
I know.
You don't think Josh Downs would have made a difference?
Listen, I'm with you. And it's not even, and we've talked about this a lot, it's not even that he can go out and get 6 catches, 85 yards, and a touchdown. It's the fact that in the punt return game, he can go get you a first down in the punt return game. I mean, instead of getting the ball at the 14-yard line, he can bring it up to the 25, the 28-yard line, the 30-yard line, something like that. And just the drop-off with Downs, and if they throw somebody else in there, because that's not really A.D. Mitchell's spot, right? He's much more on the outside.
And again, that's who we saw
get
the uptick in playing time.
It is.
Earlier this season. Anthony Gould, the 5th-round pick out of Oregon State, continues to be pretty much a weekly healthy scratch. Maybe you would throw him back there, because didn't he do punts back when Downs was out? So maybe he would at least get a call up. I don't know if he'd play a lot offensively. Maybe that'd still be A.D. Mitchell, but maybe he would be your punt returner on Sunday, because it looked like Downs was going back there to return a punt after suffering the injury, and then the Lions got into Jake Bates' field goal range and they ended up kicking the field goal down.
I don't know if this is, this may be something that we talk about in the offseason. I don't know if it's right now. Latu now, the past couple games has done something, right? And you have the 2 offensive linemen taking the 3rd and 4th rounds. Just because of injuries and everything else, you don't have a lot left in that class this year, right? A.D. Mitchell, it's looking like he's not going to be doing too much. Again, Gonzalez and Bordolini, they've played at times. They played well.
I do think Latu's coming on.
I think I agree with you.
I think he's coming. That was a very good Detroit offensive line, and Latu, if you recovered that fumble and the strip sack, that could have changed a bit of the complexion of that second half. I think he ended with like 4 or 5 pressures. So you got to dig a little for the Latu stats, and I think it's important to do that. I've said this quite often about Kwity Paye. Kwity Paye's a guy that ends with decent sack numbers, but if you look at the consistent pressure numbers, it's not impressive at all. Latu right now, if you look at it, he's like 20. He's right in that 20-25 range of the entire NFL in pressures. I mean, for a rookie rusher, that's not bad at all.
Well, he went from, we thought he was going to play what percentage of the snaps? 3rd downs, pass packages.
Right, 30%, 40%.
30, 40, 45%. And at the end of the year, those numbers could be through the roof. The thing with Latu, boy, I'm knocking on wood here, is, we haven't done the injury thing with him. Think about it. The guy that we talked most about injury-wise going into the season because of the neck injury and just because of what he went through going to UCLA, we haven't talked about that at all with him. And we've talked about that basically with, there's guys that have missed the majority of the season, if not good parts of the season in that draft class. We haven't done that with Latu.
All right, let's head to the Payless Liquors hotline. It's one of the busiest weeks out of the year for him. Kyle Neddenriep. I think what's crazy about Kyle Neddenriep in a week like this, he's so psycho, he usually goes to like a boys basketball game tonight or tomorrow.
You damn right he does.
Kyle Neddenriep, are you doing that again?
TBA. I'll probably end up going to one. I probably shouldn't. I got too much to do, but I'm guessing I probably will.
We are lucky to have you. He's the one and only Kyle Neddenriep here from the Indianapolis Star. Kyle, each and every Friday on this show, we give out our popcorn game, our NFL game of the week that you sit down on the couch, you get the popcorn. It's your must-watch. If I had to label one of these six or ask you to label one of these six as your popcorn game, you would go where?
I would probably say the 6A game, which will be Friday night. I mean, I think that's probably it's the biggest, it's a 6A game, which is always fun in my opinion. And, probably will have the biggest crowd, and I think looks like a very even matchup, when you look at the teams playing in it with Westfield and Brownsburg, who, have played once already this year. Brownsburg won that game about, mid-season. It was the day after the hurricane situation. The game got postponed to Saturday, so they played in the afternoon, and Brownsburg won 17-13. And, Westfield definitely had a few chances, and Brownsburg was able to keep him out of the end zone. And then, Westfield's quarterback, Carson Melvin, missed the fourth quarter. He got hit pretty hard on a running play and didn't return, but he came back the next week and has played ever since, and, has been really good for them. So, I think from a standpoint of, competitiveness, and you have some new blood here. This is the first time the HCC has had two teams in the 6A finals, and Westfield's been there, 2020 and 21 against Center Grove, and lost both times. And Brownsburg hasn't been there in a long time, so a lot of excitement. Obviously, there they had a ton of fans at the Center Grove game, so I think that one probably, and there's some other good ones too, but I think that one from a kind of a new team standpoint and just a overall competitive game, I think that'll be I can't see any reason this wouldn't be a really close game, barring some injuries or either team just turning the ball over a ton or something like that.
Kyle, the most surprising result this weekend would be what, in your opinion?
I would say probably New Pal losing, I would say. And, that doesn't have as much. I mean, it is 1 versus 2. East Noble's had a great season. Talked to, their coach, Alex Stewart, yesterday, who had a really good run at Western for several years. He's in his first year, actually, at East Noble. So, but just, New Pal's been so good. And, they beat Bishop Chatard a couple weeks ago in overtime, and then, really rolled past Martinsville last week. So I kind of wonder if looking back on it, we'll think of that Chatard-New Pal game as kind of a quasi-state championship game, with how close that was and what a good game it was. But I just feel like New Pal's, I think next year they may be even better, which is kind of scary to say. But they do have a really good senior class, and Michael Thacker, who's going to Ball State's an excellent defensive tackle for them. So. But I think that's probably just the fact that New Pal's been there a lot, under Kyle Ralph, and sort of a new territory a little bit for East Noble, and also the sort of the weird thing about this 4A game is over the years the southern half of 4A has really dominated the northern half, and especially in the last 4 years or so, it's been really lopsided, and even being down on the field a few times, you can tell the speed difference and the those sorts of things. I'm not saying that's necessarily going to happen in this game, but it does make you kind of wonder what the differences are from one half to the other. And a lot of those 4A games over the last 20 years or so are Roncalli or Chatard or New Pal too has been there, and so it's a lot of kind of the same teams a lot of times too, in fairness, but there has been a pretty big discrepancy in this class.
He's great, Kyle Neddenriep. He's with us here from the Indianapolis Star. Of course, he'll have all your coverage coming up. 6 state final games beginning Friday at the even classes, Saturday the odd classes over at Lucas Oil Stadium. Kyle, I'm obsessed with a triple option. It pained me to cheer against Army and Navy earlier this season against my Irish. I've got to be all in on the Warsaw Tigers, correct?
Oh yeah, they're a running team, and that'll be a contrast. And I almost said the 5A game because when you asked me about the can't miss game, because I think that'll be a fun one too. Just because I love contrast to style type games, and Decatur is super fast. They they're not just a passing team. They can run it too, but their speed dimension is something that's more similar to a 6A team than a 5A team. So. that'll be the challenge for Warsaw, is trying to slow down their, sort of their ability to make big plays offensively. But yeah, Warsaw, I would say, this is maybe a little bit of a surprise team. I thought going into the year they might have a chance to do this. But it's almost entirely based on what they do running the ball. They run for 282 yards a game, and that's sort of the nature of how they've done it under Bart Curtis there. And he did the same when they was at Mishawaka. They were kind of the same way. They really believe in what they do, and their quarterback can really run the ball well. So that'll be the challenge for Decatur. Is you're playing a different, just almost a totally different type of team. Now I'd say, maybe, and I'm not saying they run the exact same offense, but Whiteland is maybe somewhat similar to what they see in Warsaw this weekend with their ability to run the ball and do it from maybe a somewhat similar fashion. So, that could be maybe one advantage Decatur has, is you see Whiteland every year. So, that one will be interesting based on the contrast of styles. I'm going to pick Decatur. I think they're ready to win a title this year, but I think that's an interesting matchup for sure. And also, too, Warsaw's beat the top three teams, the top three ranked teams the last 3 weeks. They beat Concord, Lafayette, Jeff, and Merrillville, who are ranked 1, 2, and 3 in the class.
Well, it's good. Me and KB both have the over in rushing yards already there for Saturday night at 7 o'clock at Lucas Oil. There might be one I'm just missing. I apologize, and I'm putting you on the spot here, but what would be the personal interest feel-good story of this weekend? Is there one that you're watching that could happen?
Yeah, there is, and I'm going to have a story on. I can't say exactly what it is yet,
okay,
but there is a good story, and hopefully people read it. It'll hopefully be out Thursday morning. Just I can't say what it is just yet, but yeah, there is one. There is, and there's a couple of. And I asked. So the question I asked yesterday at the media day was, what are you thankful for, on Thanksgiving and being this week, still playing in the football state finals. And I asked all the coaches. I couldn't get to every coach at the media day, but talked to a lot of them, and a couple of really good stories, one especially. So, but yeah, I would encourage, hopefully I can get that done here in the next day or so, and that'll run Thursday morning. But yeah, there definitely is a couple of those. Certainly one for sure. That's pretty, emotional, I would say. But yeah, there's, from a standpoint of football, I would say Adams Central, because, they've been there the last 3 years, lost every time to Lutheran. So they move up to 2A, and so does Lutheran. So, this year it looked like that was going to be the matchup, as they go through the tournament, and, Adams Central keeps winning, Lutheran keeps winning. And then Lutheran loses last week to Linton Stockton in the semi-state. So now Adams Central, finally gets a different opponent. And it's Linton Stockton who beat Lutheran. So, I think from a standpoint of maybe a team to root for that's been there so many times and hasn't got it done in this regime, that they might be that team. And they play Friday morning at 11 in the 2A game, Adams Central and Linton. And Linton's a good story too, making it back there. They won the 1A title in 2016, but yeah, that would be good. And it's kind of funny too, because North Judson is also here in 1A, and they lost to Adams Central in the semi-state all those times. And now, yesterday North Judson, their coach Brett Lambert, he's sitting right next to Michael Mosser at the different table for Adams Central. It's like you get here and you still run into Adams Central, just by the nature of both teams making it. But pretty cool that both those teams are here again, and there's a lot of new. It is kind of a fun year, I think, because there's a lot of new blood here. There's 3 teams that lost last year in the state finals, and Decatur Central, of course, and Heritage Hills, and then Adams Central. So you got some teams trying to avenge those games, and then, like I said, a lot of new blood here too that either haven't been here in a long time or maybe not at all. So including Warsaw, which has never made it. So. Just kind of a lot of fun matchups. And I think, looking at these matchups, I think there's going to be some really good crowds. You look at all 3 of those games on Friday, I think have potential to, all those teams should bring a lot of fans, I think. And then, probably Saturday too, with Warsaw making it their first time, and Heritage Hills always brings a ton of people. So I think a potential for, pretty good, crowds. I don't think it'd be a record, but I think it'll be really good. Probably a jump over the last couple of years.
A Tom Rinaldi type tease there from Kyle
It
Dunrip
was.
as we await
I like that.
his story coming up in the Star later this week. Kyle, we'll end with this, and as always, thank you for the time. I know it's crazy busy. Mr. Football, has it been decided, or do we need to watch Friday and Saturday?
Yeah, I mean, it's hard to know for sure, based on some of the guys who are potentially up for it. They're not playing anymore. So, Mark Zachary obviously comes to mind, and he's his resume. He won Marion County Player of the Year, was announced yesterday, and you go through that list, and it's like, man, these guys are. Davion Chandler wins Offensive Player, Damian Shanklin Defensive Player. That's always just such a good team. The All County team is, but. There's some good players out there. I think. I wonder about Carson Melvin of Westfield. In the quarterback position, and he's got a chance to maybe win a state championship. Or, Michael Thacker, who's like I said, defensive lineman. Those are tough position. Defensive line is a tough position to win the outright Mr. Football, but maybe put himself in position to win the position award of Mr. Football. So, there's some. I think some guys who are maybe the highest up there that we thought are not around this weekend. So maybe one of these other guys can kind of put their best foot forward. So we'll see. And there's a lot of juniors too that are playing, like Jake Goldsberry from Heritage Hills, who's going to have by next year he's going to have a great resume, and Casimir Hicks from Decatur Central, who's a junior. He'll be back next year playing. So you got some good, really good juniors, also sophomores too that will be playing this weekend. So guys who maybe put their name out there for future awards as well.
Well, Kyle, we'll look forward to your piece coming up here in a couple of days. And as always, man, we really appreciate the coverage. Certainly, we are thankful to have you on the Preps beat locally. Enjoy Friday, enjoy Saturday. And as always, man, thanks for the time.
You bet. Thanks, guys. Enjoy the games.
That's great. Kyle Dunrip right there. Again, even classes coming up Friday, odd on Saturday.
I'm just looking. I've been digging and doing some stuff on the basketball side. We've been talking a lot of football. Basketball starting like this weekend.
Right. Wednesday night of Thanksgiving is usually always a very popular night for the boys' season.
And I don't know, and I shouldn't. I apologize, but there's the tournament up here that my alma mater, Jeffersonville High School,
the Hall of Fame Classic,
is playing in, and there's a great chance, and I got to find out from some leaks down in southern Indiana if Trey Singleton, he's their big-time D1 player.
He suffered a big injury, didn't he?
He suffered an injury. It was an 8 to 12-week injury, and we're, doing the math, we're about 9-10 weeks in. So I have no idea if he's going to play, and obviously if he doesn't play, they'll probably lose, which would be disappointing. But I did not know this. Jeffersonville High School plays Cathedral Saturday night, 7 o'clock.
This Saturday?
A big one. Yeah, this Saturday. Coming up. Yeah, in 4 days.
Interesting. Brady Kaler for the Irish course committing to Notre Dame, or signed with Notre Dame.
So how about that?
Let's get a wager going, boys. Come on.
I need to let me do some texting, and I'll find out if my guy's playing. If he's playing, then we'll do a wager on something, and I'll lose.
Are you allowed to bet a six-pack on a high school sporting event?
You can bet any. Listen,
over under 8% of our audience that has bet a six-pack of beer on a high school sporting event.
Oh, man.
I'm going to say over. I'm going to say 13%.
Yeah, I'm going to say – the reason I'm going to say over is early on in my career, a guy would come to my to the station I was working for and would have parlay cards for Indiana high school basketball and football. So, that was back in 2007. That was back in 2007. So I'm going to say that betting's only got more popular.
Slip the hotline number over to him on that. And speaking of local, speaking of high schools here in the state, I believe it's South Bend Adams. I probably should double check that. I know it's Ball State for Danny Pinter, but the South Bend product, the third string center for the Colts, he might be first string coming up on Sunday. Again, Shane Steichen announced yesterday, Tanner Bordolini, the rookie out of Wisconsin, concussion-like symptoms after the Lions game. So he is in protocol. Typically, those guys don't make it through protocol by the end of the week. Ryan Kelly still is on injured reserve for one more week at least. So that would mean Pinter. Now, he has 7 career starts. 5th-round pick back in 2020. Suffered the season-ending injury last year during a preseason game in Philly. He has not played an offensive snap since late 2022. Has not started again. The last start he had, the Colts beat the Chiefs.
Okay.
In September 2022.
Wow. Okay.
So we will see if Bordolini can make it through, if Pinter then would start. And then I'm curious about right guard. Mark Lewinsky for Dalton Tucker. Do we see that happen this week at right guard?
Yeah, Tucker struggled.
And you know who has struggled?
Who's
is
that?
Quinton Nelson.
Well, Quinton Nelson has struggled. Yeah, but you can't do anything with that.
11 penalties on the year for Quinton Nelson.
I don't know what the future there is. He's been such a good player for so many years. I just don't know. I mean, this is a bigger topic probably for after the season, but I got thinking, we did not yesterday talk we did not talk negatively about Anthony Richardson or the quarterback position. And it's like, if some of these other pieces, if the offensive line isn't good and Jonathan Taylor is 2.6 yards per carry, and I know you've had a lot of injuries, are you more worried about the quarterback position or the rest of the roster now? Because it's been the quarterback position instead of the rest of the roster, and now we're this late into the year, and I think a lot of it has to do you don't have a bye. I'm starting to be worried about more parts of the roster than I was probably a month and a half ago.
Just to put the number 11 penalties for Nelson into some perspective here. Again, 11 with 5 games to go. Last year he had 6. The year before that, 4. 4 the year prior to that, 7, 3, and as a rookie he had 9. Those are full season numbers. He's had 11 through 12 games. I mean, if he keeps that on track, he'll have double, triple, quadruple the amount of penalties he's had in some of these other seasons.
I mean, there is an out in the contract. Is it stupid to mention that? He's 28 years old.
I know a lot of people bring that up with Braden Smith at right tackle. That would probably have to, that would need, I don't think I'm there, but I think just pointing out you need a higher level of play, period, from him is very fair, and it's probably necessary on that end. A lot of people, again, bring that up kind of with Braden Smith at right tackle. He has been, I would have to look up his penalty numbers. I'd guess they are decently high this season as well.
But think about this. If you're talking about, okay, Ryan Kelly's not back, if you think of him getting older contract, and then we're talking about Braden Smith as well, and I throw in, okay, there's an Allen Quinn Nelson. I mean, you start talking about having to rework your entire offensive line, and that's not, you're not doing that.
Again, I'm a big believer in, pass the torch. And I think Ryan Kelly to Bortolini, that seems to be a pretty, I was about to make up a U.S. track and field baton reference, but don't we always drop it?
Don't we stink at that?
Yeah,
Are the Jamaicans the best at that?
A Jamaican passing of the torch is the ideal scenario there on that end. So we'll see how that plays out. Again, Colts have an off day today. Upcoming practice for Patriots Week will begin tomorrow. They are a 2.5-point favorite here in Week 13. And listening to Gerard Mayo's presser yesterday, they're irate with him. I'm like, he's a first-year head coach, but, I mean, they are so pissed at him. I guess.
What are they going to do?
I know.
I mean, you're not going to fire him. You have a rookie quarterback. I think Drake May is actually, I think he could be pretty good.
I think it sounds like he's had good moments, but last week was probably his worst game of the season.
They were terrible. I mean, the Dolphins smashed him.
And again, they have the most obscure roster in the NFL.
Yes, they do. I saw Jabril Peppers got taken off one of the NFL exempt list.
Yeah.
So I don't think he can be back this week, but he's been a good player for them the last couple of years, if he can.
All right. It was a good night for the Pacers. It was a great night for Tyrese Haliburton. Let's hit a morning checkdown.
The Morning Checkdown, brought to you by Butler Bulldogs Basketball. The Dogs return to action inside Hinkle Fieldhouse Tuesday, December 3rd against Eastern Illinois. Visit butlersports.com/buy tickets.
All right, so the Pacers won 114-110. Back-to-back wins now for the Pacers. Mark, let's bring this to air. Who texted you with the spread for last night's game?
Our boy Nathaniel Finch.
Okay, so thank you to the Finch man. It was actually an 8-point spread. Is that what he said between
the two? It closed at -8. Yeah.
Okay, so
I think that Brandon Ingram late scratch probably sent that line a little higher than it was when we talked to you yesterday.
Yeah, I think that's probably right. So again, 114-110. That's your final last night. You look at it on the Pacers side, it's all about Tyrese Haliburton, 34 points, 13 assists in the win. Just the 2 turnovers, hit 9 3-pointers in the game. All 5 starters scored in double figures last night. Pascal Siakam had 5 straight games of 20-plus. He ended that last night with 14 points, but did have 7 rebounds, 7 assists. Up next for Indy, hosting tomorrow night. Who's even on Portland? Shaden Sharp and the Portland Trailblazers.
Really banged up. Ayton, Donovan Clingan,
Nurkic still there?
Scoot Henderson. I think Nurkic is gone. Scoot Henderson. I mean, they are really, really banged up. So we'll see about some of the availability coming up tomorrow night. Last night was a $200 million night from Tyrese Haliburton. There haven't been many, if any, of those this season. He was outstanding. And a great story, Quinton Jackson. I think Rick Carlisle had some just kind of cool tidbits on that when he joined us earlier in the show. You can check that out on the podcast. All right, Monday Night Football, older brother beats younger brother. That's John over Jim. The Ravens 30, the Chargers 23. Chargers got out to a nice start, and then Lamar Jackson, Derrick Henry and company took over from there. So that is your Monday night game. Reminder, Thanksgiving Thursday, Lions-Bears, 12:30. Arguably the game of the year in the NFL at 4:30. Giants and Cowboys.
Let's go. DeVito, Rush. CeeDee Lamb.
Is Rush healthy enough?
Darius Slayton.
Why don't they start Trey Lance?
What is Trey Lance doing there then?
I know why.
I mean, if you didn't tell me otherwise, I think Cooper Rush is like Jerry Jones' nephew, and that's why he's starting.
No, I'll tell you why. Here, hey, give me just a second here.
Packers, Dolphins. That's your nightcap.
Yeah, that's a pretty good one. Okay, here's the reason I think they're doing what they're doing. Their schedule, they feel the rest of the way could put them back in contention. That's what I think.
What?
They have the Giants, Bengals, Panthers, and Washington, who's lost 3 straight games. And, of course, they have the Eagles. They must think they can win like 4 of those games.
The Eagles could be resting. What is the 7th spot in the NFC going to be like as putrid as the 7th spot in the AFC?
Yeah.
Although Denver, they might just run away with it.
Well, they might. Yeah, I mean, right now the 7th seed is Washington.
What's their record?
With Arizona and Tampa Bay lurking, if you will. They're a 7-win team. Washington's 7-5 right now. Arizona, the 8th seed, they're 6-5. Tampa Bay's after that at 5-6. Tampa Bay's best shot will be winning the South. Like it is every year. The NFC South stinks. So figured I would throw that out there. Let me give you one Shane Steichen. He met with the media yesterday. We haven't heard too much from him. We talked yesterday a lot about what's going on with the tight ends. I think you asked this question about the production from the tight end position. Yesterday, here's what Shane Steichen had to say.
We look at stuff every week, schematically, to get them the ball, and then sometimes it happens organically, and sometimes when you do schematically try to get them involved, if they take it away, Anthony's got to go to his next read. But every week we try to look at that, Kevin, and get those guys involved.
I think Kevin there. I like that.
I think my tight end in the Turkey Bowl each year has more catches than the Colts do. Here in 2024. I do have some thoughts, tight end, running back related here in just a second. Kind of a local rundown here to wrap it up. Jaden Ivey, game winner last night for the Pistons. He's had a really nice start to this season. OG Anunoby dropping 40. Speaking of those two in their respective colleges. Again, right now we are in a great week of college basketball. Maui was outstanding yesterday. Really all 4 of those games, especially the 3. The 2 night ones, and then UConn losing. Indiana will have Louisville tomorrow. I totally forgot that Chucky Hepburn is now on Louisville. I swear he was at Wisconsin for 30 years.
He might be their best player.
That is a noon tip for Indiana. Very important the Hoosiers win that one to set them up for the rest of that Bahamas action. Zach Osterman will join us from the Bahamas coming up tomorrow on the show. Purdue out in San Diego. They'll have NC State on Thursday, and then either BYU or Ole Miss on Friday. And Butler is in Phoenix. They've got Northwestern. That is a Thanksgiving night game on CBS Sports Network, and then Mississippi State or UNLV in that one.
What do you think Ken Palm predicts Indiana Louisville to be? I'm looking at it right now.
Indiana favored by 6.
Has Indiana winning by 3.
Because Louisville got smoked at home by Tennessee, right?
They got embarrassed. They haven't played anybody else. They got embarrassed by Tennessee. They were never in that game. They shoot a bunch of
Pat Kelsey runs and guns, right?
He's going to shoot a bunch of threes. If they make the threes, it's going to be a hell of a game. If they don't, Louisville can't rebound. Indiana should be able to rebound. This is where having 19 bigs on the team should actually help Mike Woodson in this game. They should win that 2-1 in rebounding.
In years past, the amount of bigs has not led to great rebounding numbers. Did you see UNC Greensboro the other night?
I know. That's been Tennessee crushed Louisville on the boards. ESPN gives Indiana a 59.8% chance of winning. Ken Palm gives Indiana a 61% chance of winning on Wednesday.
Beth Mowens and Fever color analyst Debbie Antonelli on the call. Okay. She does great work. That'll be on the call tomorrow at noon. I can't wait to talk to Zach Osterman. Can you set this up for me? Are they just literally in Ballroom H in the Atlantis?
Oh yeah, they are. No, it's Ballroom H. That's what it looks like.
Wow.
They have the seats
it looks
out
like
there.
that on TV, but I don't know what I'm picturing. It has to be something different than just.
You can't throw the ball. If you do a full court shot, it could hit the ceiling. It could hit the ball.
It actually sounds awesome to me to take the kids to, because then you tell the kids, you go run around in the ballroom.
Yeah.
The ballroom's huge. You go run around in the ballroom, and we'll be up here in the stands.
Yeah, so we'll talk about that as well. Coming up in 15 minutes, pop quiz. We'll keep it rolling. It's a Tuesday on The Fan.
All right, pop quiz in about 10 minutes. 317-239-1070 for that. Again, some thoughts on the Colts and their tight end lack of usage is a politically correct way to put it here in just a second. Am I seeing this right with the Jets yesterday?
I had this written down, please. Tell Mark will love this story.
Can we go back and redo our goats from the weekend? So the Jets
lay it on me.
The Jets fired, and by the way, Mike Tannenbaum, saw him in the press box on Sunday. They fired Mike Tannenbaum in 2018.
Yes, they did.
As GM.
Yes, they did.
Mike Tannenbaum and Rick Spielman, another former GM, they, among, several kind of former NFL, dignitaries, if you will, they have joined the 33rd team, just a content website that has gained, I think, a lot of traction here. And the Jets make an announcement yesterday that they are using Mike Tannenbaum and Rick Spielman, again, Mike Tannenbaum, the man they fired, they are using him and them as a consultant in their GM search.
I had a buddy.
Is this real life?
No, it's real life. I had a buddy. I texted him. He's a big Jets fan. He's a miserable person over it, and I just found it to be funny. And he's like, I can't wait for Mike Tannenbaum to recommend himself to be the next
How great would
general
that be
manager.
if they hired one of those two?
Every time you hear like Mike Tannenbaum on Get Up and he's offering like trade scenarios, like how there's a reason you're not a GM anymore. They're just preposterous.
Now, I found it extra interesting that, and maybe this just happened to be a funny circumstance, but last week the 33rd team posted on their website a GM candidate list for the Jets.
Oh, did they? Well, that's the list.
There you go.
Why did they need to hire him? Just go to the internet and look on Twitter X and just get the list.
Well,
Come on, Woody Johnson.
They didn't have a subscription, so we're like, we'll hire you, and can you give us a password?
Well, number 2 on the list was Ed Dodds for the Colts, a name that has come up many times here in recent years. So as we ask Chris Ballard-related questions about a 9th year for Chris Ballard, what about his right-hand man, Ed Dodds? Again, a man that I think has disagreed with some decisions there. He's certainly not, been full disagreement, but there's been a decision or two he's had some questions about.
I have 2 things on this. Number 1, and I'm asking you, I'm not expecting you to totally know the answer because it's been so long now that Chris Ballard has been here. If they did move on from Chris Ballard at the end of the year, is that does Jim Irsay make that hire himself? Does he bring in some sort of group? Not Mike Tannenbaum, but consulting companies are used all over, especially college athletics. You know that.
I mean, I think there's a degree that you do use that. Just, even if for nothing else, just like background stuff.
Right.
Just to kind of get all of that. But, I'm trying to recall what happened in 2017 when, I know I have the list of candidates somewhere, but I don't think there was maybe as a public of a, hey, this is our consulting firm that we're using. But today's day and age, it seems to be pretty popular. One thing to note on the Colts tight ends, and, you brought this up yesterday. How about running backs as well and the lack of catches they have? Andy, there is 55 tight ends in the NFL that have more catches than any Colt tight end. There are 46 running backs in the NFL that have more catches than any Colt running back. Again, there's only 32 teams, just to remind everybody in the league. And you nearly have 2 tight ends on every team that have more catches than the Colts leader.
Which one surprises you more?
These are healthy rooms, by the way.
Oh, sure.
Let's not act like the tight end room has been filled with injuries in season. Or, Taylor's missed a couple games, but that's it. Which one surprises me more? Well, that's a great question.
Okay, so I think I know my answer. I think them not having a running back they can throw a screen pass to is the most surprising thing about this offense.
Tight end, I kind of knew this was coming.
Sure.
Running back, it was like, Tyler Goodson or Evan Hull or, maybe Taylor just becomes more of that, let's force feed him a target a game. And, I thought Sunday was the poster child of how having a competent tight end running back receiving core can help you. I can count on my hand 3 to 4 times the Lions threw the ball way short of the sticks. But because no one accounted for that running back or tight end, David Montgomery, Jahmyr Gibbs, Sam Laporta, Brock Wright, they got a first down.
It feels like...
the Colts, again, didn't have a single tight end or running back catch.
Even Gibbs, they put Gibbs out wide. And are they always throwing him the ball? No, but you have to watch out for him, right? He runs across the middle. He can make that catch. Yeah, I'm stunned because, especially on the running back side, and maybe they thought this was Goodson, but it's not Goodson because this year it's obvious that it's not Goodson. And, going forward, I think we know that's not something that they could have went into free agency and taken a shot or two at a guy, at a running back who could catch the ball out of the backfield. And again, you can't sell me Evan Hall and you can't sell me Goodson because those guys don't play. And you cut Evan Hall and put him on the practice squad, okay? He's been active for, 1 or 2 games this season. So those guys are not legitimate options for you going forward. You know, we'll see what happens the final few games here, but I think where I was probably a little bit more wrong is I thought they had a nice amount of help around Anthony Richardson, and it's apparent that they don't. And I think that will be next offseason will be you need to go out and get even more help for Anthony Richardson because it's glaring even at the wide receiver position. It's glaring on not being able to run a damn screen pass to a running back, and it is glaring, and it has to affect this offense that you don't have a tight end that is consistently winning battles. And, you know, Steichen had that. He had that in Philadelphia, and he just does not have it here. And listen, the Kylan Granson not looking back when the blitz is coming, like, to me, that is a perfect example of a better tight end makes that play.
Yeah.
He just does. So
Sunday was such a microcosm for the tight ends. Biggest play of the year, Kylan Granson, and what happens? Mo Cox misses a block. Drew Ogletree tackles the Lions defender, and it's called back. And then Ogletree has to drop. By the way, this pop quiz is a joke.
Oh, no. Scotty, come on.
If you can think, you're going 5 for 5.
Oh, so you think it's that way. It's not a joke the other way. Okay.
No, it's the softest pop quiz I've seen.
So Scotty's being nice then. Well, good for him.
We've given 2 of these answers on the show. And just a little thinking, we'll get the other answers right.
Okay.
Speaking of a joke, that 33rd team with the Jets, you said, they have Mike Tannenbaum, former Jets. Adam Gase, also part of the 33rd team.
Just bring the band back together. Bring the band back together, baby.
He never.
Mark Sanchez got anything left in him?
He's at Fox, isn't he? He never got over that press conference where he had the crazy eyes.
No.
Did Adam Gase?
Yeah, one of the best,
it's kind of like the Sam Darnold ghost thing.
Yeah.
Like as good as Darnold's played,
I know.
He's always gonna have
remember
that.
Ben McAdoo had the big suit too. Like some guys don't get over the press conference. Adam Gase and the crazy eyes, he never got over the
One
press
of my
conference.
favorite things is somebody put like a burrito.
Oh yeah,
floating, and he's just like staring at it. It's hilarious.
The internet won. Yes, they did with him. Let's take a break. Coming up on the other side. All right, pop quiz. KB saying it's easy.
It's a joke.
239-1070 pop quiz next.
All right, we need a pop quiz caller, 317-239-1070. Again, I think this pop quiz is one of the easiest in the history of pop quizzes. I would expect the Jiffy Lube oil change for 5 for 5 to be happening.
Yeah, I think you've scared them off because now if they don't go 5 for 5, they're going to feel like idiots.
We have people calling in now.
We've given multiple of these answers.
You're putting pressure on them.
If you just think, like number 4, you just got to think. I just ask people to pause and think.
That's a good point.
Like when I see that
4.
year, that is the first thing that comes to mind for me. I don't know. I mean, I'm not trying to U.S. history us here, but right?
Yeah. I mean, number 5's easy. Number 1 is easy.
Just think.
Yeah, I'm trying to think.
2's kind of iconic, right?
Yep. I mean, 2 is very iconic. Yeah, you're right. And then number 3, you should know. We've given that answer, 3 times yesterday and 3 times today, probably, during the check down?
A reminder, 8 o'clock tonight. That'll be your college football rankings, exactly where Indiana is on that list will obviously be a hot-button topic. Selfishly, I'm curious if my Irish will jump Penn State, and then in the back of my mind, I say, just worry about the hated rival of USC on Saturday.
Who do you want?
I want Notre Dame to be a 5 or 6 seed because I want Ace. Well, again, I want to win. Let me start there.
Sure.
But
let's say you beat USC. Who do you want in the college football playoff? I guess that's my question.
I want ACC or Big 12 in round 2. Who do I want? Probably Indiana.
That's who I want to see.
Is that bad
happen.
to say?
No,
Am I allowed to say that?
I want Indiana Notre Dame. That's the matchup I want in the first round. I don't mind saying it. It's good for the show. It's juicy for the area.
Probably SMU, you know, just because, what exactly are they? And I might be discrediting them. I will say this. I don't have this massive SEC scaredom, if that's a word.
You're not fearful of the SEC this year. I understand.
As I usually am.
Listen, I'm with you.
Now, what worries me about Notre Dame is the injuries are continuing to pile up. Their depth is really being tested. They're going to have to play. I mean, Saturday night's a real football game for them.
Sure it is.
And Riley Leonard, I still don't trust. I just don't think their offense is potent enough. They have a great run game. Jeremiah Love's one of the most dynamic players, frankly, I've ever seen at Notre Dame. But those are where my worries
right now, Heather Dinich has you playing SMU. What I know about SMU
and then who would be round 2?
I don't have that in front of me. I'm sorry.
Does she have the seed number on that?
Yes, you would be the 7 seed.
Yeah, see, I'd like to be the 5 or the 6.
Yeah.
7 would mean you'd get, like, the SEC.
You would play Texas.
Champ or...
Boy, I tell you, I think Notre Dame, if you play Texas, I would not be fearful of Texas. Quinn Ewers is having an MRI on his ankle. He got injured. They play Texas A&M. I think there's a chance they lose that game. I know
at A&M, right?
Yeah, and I know Arch Manning is good, but he also hasn't played in a month plus or whatever it is. So
it's something, and we'll look at the bracket tomorrow. Again, I'm being very optimistic, and I shouldn't do this with Notre Dame.
I know.
But with the 1st seed and the 5th seed likely being some combination of Oregon, Ohio State, that means they're on the same side of the bracket.
Correct.
So if you're the 6 of Notre Dame, you're avoiding Oregon and Ohio State, which I like.
Yeah, like there's a chance
until the championship, theoretically.
If Notre Dame could get up to a 6, they could play like an Indiana, and then they would play an ACC team like a Miami.
Right, and then you'd have to beat the SEC champ if seeds would hold to get there. But again, I'm getting way ahead of myself.
Last thing on this. What I know from SMU, Lashley, I think's his name, pretty good young coach. They switched up their quarterback midseason. How many teams do that? I mean, they switch up their quarterback midseason, and that's been good. I think tonight, besides Indiana, the Big 12 is going to have, with Colorado and BYU losing now a couple games, those 2 teams out of the way. So you're going to have someone new in the Big 12, and then does the ACC get respect and get a second team in?
Yeah, that's the big thing for tonight.
I have not thought that at any point this season, but I think tonight you may see 2 teams in the ACC. I think.
Mark, give us a caller. Who we got here?
All right, we'll go fast fingers. Daniel,
it's one of the easiest pop quizzes I've ever seen. We can't make small talk. Happy Thanksgiving. Safe travels. Andy Sweeney, fire away.
All right, Daniel, question number 1. The Pacers beat the Pelicans last night. Who was the game's leading scorer? Tyrese Haliburton, Trey Murphy, Miles Turner, C.J. McCollum.
Haliburton.
Murphy can play basketball, by the way.
He's good.
Number 2, John Harbaugh ran his record against Jim to 3-0. Ravens over the Chargers last night. It was the first meeting of the Harbaugh brothers since Super Bowl 47 at the end of the 2012 season. Where was that game played? Super Bowl 47. Was it Glendale, New Orleans, Texas, or South Florida?
Texas.
You remember the power going out?
Oh, yeah. I didn't mean Texas. Blah,
Say it again.
blah,
One more time.
Glendale.
It sounded like me about
Florida,
Thanksgiving
South Florida,
Eve.
South Florida.
Sound like his lights went
Sounds
out.
like my Wednesday blackout history of Brothers where John's going to be
I
tomorrow.
was about to say, it sounds like Thursday night for me.
Gosh.
Question number
I haven't
3.
seen you since high school. You look great.
There are three NFL games scheduled for Thanksgiving Day. The 6 teams playing on Thursday include the 2 long-term Turkey Day hosts, the Detroit Lions and the Dallas Cowboys. Of the following 4 teams, though, which one is not playing on Thanksgiving this season? The Dolphins, the Giants, the Steelers, or the Packers?
Packers suck.
Dolphins.
Number 4 here. When was the last time there was no NFL game on Thanksgiving Day? Is it 2020, 1959, 1944, or 1935?
44.
There we
All
go.
over
How
it.
about that
All
one?
over it.
All right, last one. One of the current 32 NFL teams has never played on Thanksgiving Day. Is it the Bengals, the Bucks, the Texans, or the Jags?
Bengals, Bucks. Jag.
There you go. I couldn't tell if he was asking us or if he was saying it.
Close enough.
Not a bad effort
All
from
right,
Daniel
Daniel.
there. It was
Yeah.
not a 5 for 5-er. Superdome. That's where
Yeah.
the power went out.
Come on, New Orleans. Come on.
And number 3, it's the Steelers not playing on Thanksgiving. You got the
Well,
other 3 right.
It was fun while it lasted.
How about this? Jerry Jones making his weekly appearance on Dallas radio.
No.
Asked about a contract extension for head coach Mike McCarthy. Jerry's quote, "I don't think that's crazy at all. This is a Super Bowl winning coach. Mike McCarthy has been there and done that. He has great ideas. We got a lot of football left."
Man, I tell you.
We get to suck on that all week.
I would just.
Happy Thanksgiving, Cowboys
I would
fans.
just
Like quotes
absolutely
like
love that.
you think about like what blackmail do these people have?
Listen, everyone says that Jerry Jones wants someone who is a little bit of a puppet. You think of Jason Garrett. I actually agree with that analysis. It's given so much. They should probably go after a guy like Deion Sanders, but that's too much. That's too much with Jerry. He's got to have a guy like that. He did hire Parcells, though. That's the only thing. He did hire Bill Parcells.
John,
The tuna.
John in the YouTube chat, Notre Dame's glad Northern Illinois isn't in. Yeah, John,
Yeah, well.
respectfully kiss my ass. I get it. All right.
They're a top 6-7 team in
I
the
get
country.
it. Gosh.
Yeah.
Beating every team by a million
Yeah,
points.
it doesn't
since then.
matter. You
I'm
lost
worried about
NIU.
USC.
Okay, that's
But
fine.
I'm
You
worried
should be.
tonight. Notre Dame, Rutgers, 10:30 if you guys want to
Yeah,
stop
well,
by.
I'll be dialed in and sleepy tomorrow morning. Check out the podcast center if you missed any of us, 1075thefan.com. Have a good day right here on The Fan.